Welcome to the Age of Dinosaurs. Close your eyes and let your mind drift back through time. Not just decades or centuries, but millions of years, 165 million years to be precise. You're travelling backward through human history, through the Ice Ages, through the Age of Mammals, past the extinction that ended the Cretaceous period, and finally arriving in a world that seems both alien and strangely familiar. This is Earth during the Mesozoic Era, the Age of Dinosaurs, and tonight we're going to explore every fascinating corner of this ancient world. Before you drift off to sleep, let me set the scene for the journey you're about to take. We'll be exploring not just the dinosaurs themselves, though there are plenty of mind-blowing facts about these incredible creatures, but also the world they inhabited, the ecosystems they were part of, the evolutionary innovations they developed, and the mysteries that still puzzle paleontologists today. This isn't a rapid-fire list of facts designed to keep you alert. Instead, this is a slow, meandering journey through deep time, designed to let your mind wander through prehistoric landscapes as you gradually drift towards sleep. The pace is deliberate, the tone is calm, and the goal is not to excite but to soothe, while still filling your mind with genuinely fascinating information about the most successful land animals in Earth's history. What made dinosaurs special? Before we dive into specific facts and species, let's understand what made dinosaurs unique. The word dinosaur means terrible lizard, but dinosaurs weren't lizards at all. They were a distinct group of reptiles with several anatomical features that set them apart from all other animals that came before or since. The most important feature was their posture. Unlike reptiles like crocodiles or lizards, which have legs that sprawl out to the sides of their bodies, dinosaurs had legs positioned directly underneath their bodies, what scientists call an erect or fully upright posture. This might seem like a minor detail, but it was revolutionary. This posture allowed dinosaurs to move more efficiently, run faster, support larger body sizes, and sustain activity for longer periods than sprawling reptiles could. Imagine trying to do a push-up with your arms out to the sides versus directly under your shoulders. The latter is far more efficient, allowing you to support more weight with less effort. That's essentially the advantage dinosaurs had over other reptiles. This single innovation opened up evolutionary possibilities that no other reptile group could access. Dinosaurs also had unique hip structures. They're divided into two major groups based on hip anatomy: the Saurischians, lizard-hipped, and Ornithischians, bird-hipped. The Saurischians included the theropods, bipedal carnivores like Tyrannosaurus and Velociraptor, and the sauropods, long-necked herbivores like Brachiosaurus and Diplodocus. The Ornithischians included all the other herbivorous dinosaurs, horned dinosaurs like Triceratops, armored dinosaurs like Ankylosaurus, duck-billed dinosaurs like Parasaurolophus, and many others. Interestingly, despite the names, birds evolved from Saurischians, lizard-hipped dinosaurs, not Ornithischians, bird-hipped dinosaurs. This is one of those delightful ironies in paleontology that reminds us that evolution doesn't always follow paths that seem logical to human observers. The Mesozoic world. The dinosaurs dominated terrestrial ecosystems for 165 million years. From their first appearance around 230 million years ago, in the late Triassic period until their extinction, except for birds, 66 million years ago at the end of the Cretaceous period. To put that in perspective, modern humans have existed for less than 300,000 years. Dinosaurs dominated Earth for more than 500 times longer than humans have existed. During this vast span of time, the world changed dramatically. When dinosaurs first appeared, all the continents were joined in a single supercontinent called Pangaea. By the time they went extinct, the continents had drifted to positions approaching their modern configuration. The climate shifted from the hot, dry conditions of the Triassic to the warm, humid conditions of the Jurassic and Cretaceous. The vegetation transformed from primitive conifers and ferns to include flowering plants by the late Cretaceous. Through all these changes, dinosaurs adapted, evolved, and thrived. They diversified into an astonishing array of forms, from chicken-sized predators to animals weighing more than 70 tons, from swift bipedal runners to slow quadrupedal browsers, from meat-eaters with serrated teeth to herbivores with grinding dental batteries containing hundreds of teeth. Your journey tonight. Over the next several hours, we're going to explore 20 different aspects of dinosaur life and science. We'll meet specific species, and learn their unique characteristics. We'll explore how paleontologists discover and interpret dinosaur fossils. We'll examine the behaviours, diets, and lifestyles of these ancient creatures. We'll investigate the environments they lived in and the other organisms that shared their world. Each chapter will focus on a different theme, sometimes a specific time period, sometimes a particular group of dinosaurs, sometimes a scientific mystery, sometimes a remarkable fossil discovery. The chapters are designed to be somewhat independent, so if you wake during the night and start listening again, you won't have lost the thread of a complex narrative. Instead, you'll simply be joining a different part of the journey. The facts we'll explore are genuinely mind-blowing. These aren't the simplified dinosaur facts you learned as a child, though those were wonderful in their own way. These are deeper insights, recent discoveries, scientific revelations that have emerged from decades of paleontological research. You'll learn things that will change how you think about dinosaurs, evolution, and the deep history of life on Earth. But the presentation is gentle, calm, designed to accompany you into sleep rather than jolt you awake with excitement. Think of it as a bedtime story, but one rooted in scientific fact, told about creatures that actually existed, based on evidence preserved in stone for tens of millions of years. The magic of paleontology. One of the most remarkable aspects of dinosaur science is that we can know anything at all about creatures that lived and died tens of millions of years before the first humans appeared. The fossil record is fragmentary. Most organisms that ever lived left no fossils, and even when fossils form, most are destroyed by geological processes before anyone can discover them. Yet from the fossils that survive, paleontologists have reconstructed detailed pictures of dinosaur anatomy, behaviour, ecology, and evolution. We can determine what dinosaurs ate from their teeth, jaw mechanics, and sometimes even preserved stomach contents. We can estimate how fast they move from their leg proportions and preserved trackways. We can infer their growth rates from bone microstructure. We can determine their colours, in rare cases, from preserved pigment molecules. We can reconstruct their environments from the rocks surrounding their fossils and from the other fossils found with them. It's detective work on a grand scale, piecing together evidence from fragmentary remains, using principles from biology, physics, chemistry, and geology to interpret what the evidence means, testing hypotheses against new discoveries. And the story that emerges from this work is more fascinating than any fiction could be. A note on numbers. Throughout this journey, you'll hear many numbers, ages of fossils, sizes of animals, time periods spanning millions of years. These numbers might seem abstract, almost meaningless in their vastness. Don't worry about remembering them or even fully comprehending them. Let them wash over you like waves, giving you a sense of the scale and scope of dinosaur history without requiring you to grasp every detail. What matters is not the specific numbers but the general patterns. That dinosaurs existed for an extraordinarily long time, that they grew to extraordinary sizes, that they lived in a world profoundly different from our own. The numbers are there to ground the story in scientific reality, but you don't need to quiz yourself on them tomorrow morning. Settling. Inner. So settle into a comfortable position. Let your breathing slow and deepen. Allow your muscles to relax, and prepare to journey through deep time to walk among giants, to explore a world that existed long before humans, long before mammals dominated the earth, back to an age when reptiles ruled and the thunder of dinosaur footsteps echoed across ancient continents. We're about to begin a journey of 165 million years, exploring creatures that would dwarf modern elephants, predators that could crush bone with a single bite, herbivores that stripped forests bare, and countless others that filled every conceivable ecological niche. This is their story. This is the age of dinosaurs, and tonight as you drift towards sleep, you're invited to witness their incredible world. Let's begin our journey in the Triassic period, 230 million years ago, when the first dinosaurs appeared in a world still recovering from the greatest mass extinction in Earth's history. Los primeros dinosaurios, humildes comienzos. The first dinosaurs, humble beginnings. The first dinosaurs were not impressive creatures. Forget the towering Brachiosaurus or the fearsome Tyrannosaurus rex. The earliest dinosaurs were small, about the size of a medium dog, lightweight, bipedal, and relatively rare compared to other reptiles of their time. They scurried through the undergrowth of late Triassic forests, hunting insects and small vertebrates, competing with numerous other reptile groups for survival. One of the earliest known dinosaurs is Eoraptor, discovered in Argentina in rocks approximately 230 million years old. Eoraptor was about 1 meter long, weighed perhaps 10 kilograms, and had a mix of primitive and advanced features that make it difficult to classify precisely. Its teeth varied. Some were leaf-shaped, suitable for processing plant material, while others were more blade-like, adapted for meat. This suggests Eoraptor was probably omnivorous, eating whatever it could find, not yet specialized for a particular diet. Eoraptor walked on its hind legs, using its long tail for balance. Its front legs were much shorter than its hind legs, but well developed, with hands that could grasp. It had 5 fingers on each hand, though the 5th was very small. Its skull was lightly built with large eye sockets, suggesting good vision. All of these features would become characteristic of many later dinosaurs, but in Eoraptor they were still primitive, not yet refined by millions of years of evolution. Another early dinosaur, Herrerasaurus, lived around the same time and place as Eoraptor but was larger, about 3 to 4 meters long, and clearly carnivorous. Herrerasaurus had a more robust skull with sharp, serrated teeth designed for cutting meat. Its hands had 3 main fingers with large claws, and it had a flexible lower jaw that could hold onto struggling prey. Herrerasaurus was one of the apex predators in its ecosystem, hunting the herbivorous reptiles that shared its environment. But here's something mind-blowing. Despite being dinosaurs, Herrerasaurus and Eoraptor were not dominant animals in their ecosystems. They were outnumbered by other reptiles, particularly crocodile-line archosaurs called Rauisuchians and Etosaurs. These non-dinosaurian archosaurs occupied many of the same ecological niches that dinosaurs would later dominate. Rauisuchians were large, predatory reptiles, some reaching 7 meters in length, with powerful jaws and semi-erect posture. They were the top predators in most late Triassic ecosystems, more common and more successful than early predatory dinosaurs. Etosaurs were armored herbivores, their backs covered with bony plates, occupying herbivore niches that later dinosaurs would fill. So why did dinosaurs eventually dominate if they were initially less successful than these other reptiles? This is one of paleontology's great questions, and the answer is still debated. Some scientists argue that dinosaurs had superior locomotor efficiency. Their fully erect posture allowed them to move faster and more efficiently than sprawling or semi-erect reptiles. Others point to possible metabolic advantages. Perhaps dinosaurs had higher metabolic rates than typical reptiles, but lower than early mammals, finding an optimal middle ground. Still others argue that dinosaur dominance was partly accidental, resulting from the end-Triassic mass extinction about 201 million years ago. This extinction eliminated many of the groups that competed with dinosaurs. The Rauisuchians went completely extinct, as did many other archosaur lineages. Dinosaurs survived better, for reasons still not entirely clear, and radiated into the empty ecological niches left by their extinct competitors. One possibility is that dinosaurs had more efficient respiratory systems. Modern birds, which are dinosaurs, have a unique breathing system with air sacs that extends into their bones, allowing air to flow in one direction through the lungs. This is more efficient than the two-way breathing of mammals and other reptiles. If early dinosaurs had even a primitive version of this system, it might have given them an advantage in the low oxygen conditions that may have characterized the end-Triassic extinction. Another factor might have been reproduction. Some evidence suggests dinosaurs laid relatively large eggs compared to their body size, and may have provided some parental care, both features that could have helped their offspring survive stressful environmental conditions. While this is speculative, it's plausible that reproductive strategies played a role in determining which group survived mass extinctions. Whatever the reasons, the end-Triassic extinction marked a turning point. Before the extinction, dinosaurs were one of many successful reptile groups. After the extinction, they were the dominant large terrestrial vertebrates, a position they would maintain for the next 135 million years. Early dinosaurs divided into 3 main lineages early in their evolution. The theropods were bipedal carnivores, including everything from small, swift hunters to eventually the largest terrestrial predators ever. The sauropodomorphs were primarily herbivorous and would eventually evolve into the giant long-necked sauropods. The Ornithischians were herbivorous dinosaurs that would diversify into numerous forms: horned, armoured, duck-billed, and many others. These three lineages all appeared early in dinosaur evolution, suggesting that the basic body plans that would characterise dinosaurs for their entire history were established quickly, within perhaps 10-20 million years of dinosaurs' first appearance. After that, it was primarily variations on these themes. Theropods remained bipedal carnivores, but evolved into numerous sizes and forms. Sauropods elaborated on the long-necked herbivore body plan, and Ornithischians diversified into the most varied group of all. The early Jurassic, following the end-Triassic extinction, saw rapid dinosaur diversification. Theropods evolved into various forms. Some, like Dilophosaurus, reached 6 meters in length, larger than any Triassic theropod. Sauropodomorphs began evolving larger sizes. Prosauropods like Plateosaurus reached 5 to 8 meters long, and the first true sauropods appeared, though they hadn't yet achieved the gigantic sizes of later forms. Ornithischians remained relatively small and rare in the early Jurassic, but were establishing the features that would characterize the group: bird-like hips, leaf-shaped teeth for processing vegetation, and in many cases the beginnings of armor, horns, or other defensive structures. The world these early Jurassic dinosaurs inhabited was recovering from the end-Triassic extinction. The climate was warm and humid, warmer than today. There were no ice caps at the poles. Forests of conifers, cycads, and ferns covered much of the land. The supercontinent Pangaea was beginning to break apart, with rifts opening that would eventually become the Atlantic Ocean. In this world, dinosaurs were finally coming into their own, filling ecological niches from small insectivore to large predator to massive herbivore. They were establishing the patterns of dominance that would characterize the rest of the Mesozoic. The age of dinosaurs had truly begun. As you drift deeper towards sleep, imagine yourself in that early Jurassic world. You're standing in a forest of primitive conifers. The air is warm and humid. In the distance, you hear the call of a Dilophosaurus. Not the exaggerated sounds from movies, but probably something more like a deep hiss or bellow. Closer by, a small theropod rustles through the undergrowth, hunting for lizards or early mammals, and on the horizon you might glimpse a herd of prosauropods, early experiments in gigantism, harbingers of the true giants to come. The first chapter of dinosaur history has been written. The humble beginnings have given way to emerging dominance, and the story is just beginning. The giants, sauropod supremacy. Let your mind drift now to the Jurassic period, the age of giants. This is when dinosaurs achieved sizes that have never been equaled by land animals, before or since. We're talking about creatures that made modern elephants look small by comparison. Animals weighing 50, 60, even 70 plus tons, standing as tall as a 4-story building, with necks that could reach into the highest tree canopies. These were the sauropods, and they represent one of evolution's most remarkable success stories. For over 100 million years, from the early Jurassic until the end of the Cretaceous, sauropods were the dominant large herbivores in most terrestrial ecosystems. They evolved into dozens of genera and hundreds of species, occupying environments from forest to semi-arid plains, from coastal lowlands to inland regions. Let's start with a creature that epitomizes the sauropods, Brachiosaurus. This animal, made famous by its starring role in the original Jurassic Park film, was truly enormous. A fully grown Brachiosaurus stood about 13 meters tall as a 4-story building. Its length from nose to tail tip was approximately 23 meters, and it weighed perhaps 40 to 50 tons, though estimates vary. To put that in perspective, that's the weight of about 6 adult elephants. But here's what's truly mind-blowing about Brachiosaurus. Its front legs were longer than its hind legs, giving it a giraffe-like build with its shoulders higher than its hips. This unique structure allowed Brachiosaurus to reach vegetation that other herbivores couldn't access. It could browse in the canopy of tall trees, stripping leaves from branches 9-12 meters above the ground without even fully extending its neck. Imagine standing beside a Brachiosaurus. If your average height, you'd reach about to its ankle. Its head would be nearly 13 meters above you. You couldn't possibly make eye contact. Each of its feet would be larger than your entire body. When it walked, each step would shake the ground, and you'd feel the vibrations through your feet. The sound would be immense, the creaking of tendons, the rush of air through its respiratory system. the rumble of its massive body in motion. Now consider Diplodocus, a different kind of giant. Diplodocus was longer than Brachiosaurus, up to 26 meters, but lighter, perhaps only 15-20 tons. It had a more horizontal neck posture and an extraordinarily long whip-like tail that contained up to 80 vertebrae. For comparison, you have 33 vertebrae in your entire spine. Recent studies suggest this tail could be snapped like a whip, creating a sonic boom as the tip exceeded the speed of sound, potentially used to deter predators or communicate with other Diplodocus. The teeth of Diplodocus were pencil-like pegs clustered at the front of its mouth, adapted for stripping leaves from branches. It couldn't chew, instead it would swallow stones called gastroliths that ground up plant material in its stomach, similar to how modern birds use grit in their gizzards. Fossilized Diplodocus specimens have been found with these stomach stones still present, providing direct evidence of this feeding strategy. Then there's Argentinosaurus, from the late Cretaceous of South America, possibly the largest dinosaur ever discovered. We don't have a complete skeleton, only fragmentary remains including some vertebrae and leg bones, but these fragments are enormous. One vertebra is over 1.5 meters tall. Extrapolating from these bones, scientists estimate Argentinosaurus may have reached 30-35 meters in length and weighed 60-100 tons. That's the weight of 10-15 elephants, possibly the largest land animal ever to exist. How did sauropods achieve such massive sizes? It's a question that fascinates paleontologists, and the answer involves multiple factors working together. First, their respiratory system. Sauropods, like modern birds, had air sacs, balloon-like structures that extended from their lungs into their bones. This served two purposes. It made their bones lighter without sacrificing strength. The bones were hollow but internally braced, like the structural beams in a building, and it made breathing more efficient. Air flowed in one direction through the lungs, providing continuous oxygen extraction, more efficient than the two-way breathing of mammals. Second, their long necks. A long neck allowed a sauropod to reach vegetation over a wide area without moving its massive body. Moving a 50-ton body requires enormous energy, but moving just a relatively light neck is far more efficient. A sauropod could stand in one place and sweep its neck across a wide arc, feeding on everything within reach, only moving when it had exhausted local food sources. Third, their digestive strategy. Sauropods didn't chew their food, they just cropped it and swallowed. This saved time and energy. The food was ground up in the stomach by gastroliths and fermented by gut bacteria in a massive digestive system that could hold a ton or more of plant material. This meant they could eat lower quality vegetation than animals that need to chew, giving them access to food sources other herbivores couldn't efficiently use. Fourth, their growth rate. Studies of sauropod bone microstructure reveal they grew extremely rapidly when young. A baby sauropod might gain several kilograms per day during its fastest growth phase, reaching near adult size in perhaps 15 to 20 years. This rapid growth meant they spent less time in the vulnerable size classes where predators could kill them. Fifth, their eggs and reproduction. Sauropods laid relatively small eggs. Even the largest sauropods had eggs only about the size of a soccer ball. This meant they could produce many eggs without investing too much energy in each one. Some fossils suggest they may have laid eggs in communal nesting grounds, with multiple females contributing to a single large nest site. After hatching, the babies were on their own. There's no evidence of parental care, but their rapid growth got them to safe sizes quickly. Sixth, their posture and bone structure. The columnar, pillar-like legs of sauropods were perfectly adapted for supporting enormous weight. The bones were thick and straight, positioned directly under the body, with weight distributed evenly. The feet were broad and pad-like, spreading the weight over a larger area, preventing the animal from sinking into soft ground. All these adaptations working together allowed sauropods to reach sizes impossible for any other land animals. Mammals, for instance, cannot achieve such sizes because they have different respiratory systems, different reproductive strategies, and different metabolic constraints. The largest mammals, blue whales, achieve greater sizes than sauropods, but only because water supports their weight. On land, sauropods remain supreme. Sauropods weren't just large, they were diverse. There were brachiosaurids with their tall builds and long front legs. There were diplodocids with their long tails and horizontal necks. There were titanosaurs, particularly successful in the southern hemisphere, some of which developed armor plating. There were chimerasaurids, more robust and generalized. Each group had different feeding strategies, different ecological niches, different adaptations. In the famous Morrison Formation of the western United States, a late Jurassic ecosystem about 150 million years old, at least 5 different sauropod genera coexisted: Brachiosaurus, Diplodocus, Apatosaurus, Camarasaurus, and Barosaurus. They partitioned resources by feeding at different heights, preferring different plant types, and occupying slightly different habitats. This allowed multiple giant herbivores to coexist without competing directly for food. As you drift further towards sleep, imagine standing in a Jurassic forest. The ground trembles slightly, a rhythmic shaking. You turn and see a herd of sauropods approaching, their long necks swaying gently as they walk. They're so large they move almost in slow motion, each step deliberate and ponderous. They reach the trees near you and begin feeding, their necks extending upward, their peg-like teeth stripping leaves from branches. The sound is surprisingly gentle, the rustle of leaves, the soft tearing of vegetation, the occasional low rumble from one of the animal's digestive systems. You're witnessing the giants, the titans of the Mesozoic, creatures so large they challenge our understanding of what's possible for land animals, and as you watch them feed, as your eyelids grow heavier, you're reminded that these weren't fantasy creatures or movie monsters. They were real. They lived. They dominated Earth for 100 million years, and they left behind enough evidence that we can reconstruct their lives in remarkable detail. The giants continue their slow parade through the forest, and you drift deeper into sleep, into dreams perhaps populated by these ancient behemoths. The predators, theropod diversity and hunting strategies. Let your breathing deepen as we shift focus from the herbivores to the predators. The theropods, the group of bipedal, primarily carnivorous dinosaurs that dominated predator niches from the late Triassic until the end of the Cretaceous. Theropods ranged in size from tiny crow-sized hunters to the largest terrestrial predators ever to exist. They evolved remarkable diversity in form and function, occupying every conceivable carnivorous niche. The most famous theropod is undoubtedly Tyrannosaurus rex, but let's approach it slowly, building up to this apex predator by first exploring some of the diversity that came before it. In the early Jurassic, around 190 million years ago, we find Dilophosaurus, a 6-meter-long predator from what is now Arizona. Dilophosaurus had paired crests on its skull, thin, fragile structures made of bone that wouldn't have been useful in combat, but were probably for display, perhaps brightly coloured in life to signal to potential mates or rivals. Its arms were strong with 4-fingered hands bearing sharp claws. Its teeth were sharp but somewhat delicate, suggesting it probably didn't attack very large or robust prey. Moving forward to the late Jurassic, about 150 million years ago, we encounter Allosaurus, perhaps the most common large predator in the Morrison Formation ecosystem of western North America. Allosaurus was smaller than T-Rex, about 8-9 meters long, weighing perhaps 1.5 tons, but it was the apex predator of its time. It had a relatively lightly built skull with powerful jaw muscles, sharp serrated teeth up to 10 centimeters long, and large claws on its 3-fingered hands. Allosaurus hunting strategies are still debated. Some scientists suggest it hunted in packs, cooperating to bring down the giant sauropods that shared its environment. Evidence for this comes from several Allosaurus skeletons found together at some sites, suggesting social behaviour. Others argue it was primarily a solitary hunter, or perhaps a scavenger, with the aggregations of skeletons representing animals that died together at a drought-stressed water source, not coordinated pack hunters. Bite force analysis suggests Allosaurus didn't have an exceptionally powerful bite compared to its skull size, certainly nothing like T-Rex's bone-crushing bite. Instead, it may have used a hatchet attack strategy, striking downward with its upper jaw, using its strong neck muscles to drive its teeth into prey, then tearing away flesh by pulling back. This would be effective against large prey like sauropods, where the goal isn't to deliver a single crushing bite, but to inflict bleeding wounds that weaken the prey over time. In the Cretaceous, theropods diversified extensively. In the southern hemisphere, families like Abelisauridae and Carcharodontosauridae dominated. Abelisaurids had short, deep skulls and remarkably tiny arms, even smaller proportionally than T-Rex. Some, like Carnotaurus, had horns over their eyes, probably used in intraspecific combat or display. Carcharodontosaurids included some of the largest theropods, animals like Giganotosaurus from Argentina, which may have rivaled or even exceeded T-Rex in size, though this is debated. In the northern hemisphere, the late Cretaceous saw the rise of the tyrannosaurs, culminating in Tyrannosaurus rex about 68-66 million years ago. Tyrannosaurus rex has been studied more intensively than perhaps any other dinosaur, and what we've learned is mind-blowing. First, its size. A fully grown T-Rex was about 12 meters long and weighed 6 to 9 tons, about as much as a large elephant. The skull alone was 1.5 meters long, filled with teeth up to 30 centimeters long, including root, the largest teeth of any land carnivore. The jaw muscles were enormous, giving T-Rex the most powerful bite force of any terrestrial animal ever measured, estimated at 35,000 to 57,000 newtons, capable of crushing bone. And T-Rex did crush bone, we have direct evidence. Fossilized Triceratops and Edmontosaurus bones show tooth marks that match T-Rex teeth, including bones that were bitten completely through. Coprolites, fossilized feces, attributed to T-Rex contain crushed bone fragments, proving that it ate bone along with meat. This bone-crushing ability was unique among large theropods and may have given T-Rex access to nutrients, like bone marrow, that other predators couldn't reach. T-Rex's arms are famously tiny, only about 1 meter long on a 12-meter animal. For years, scientists thought they were vestigial, perhaps functionless. But more recent analysis suggests they were actually quite strong, with robust bones and powerful muscles. They may have been used to grip prey during feeding, or to help the animal push itself up from a lying position. Each hand had only 2 fingers, but these were tipped with sharp claws, and could probably exert considerable gripping force. Perhaps most remarkably, recent studies have examined the sensory capabilities of T-Rex, and the findings are astonishing. Its brain case shows that it had an enlarged olfactory bulb, the part of the brain that processes smell. The olfactory bulb in Tyrannosaurus rex was proportionally larger than in any other dinosaur measured, suggesting an extraordinary sense of smell, possibly better than that of modern vultures, which locate carrion from kilometers away by scent alone. Its vision was also exceptional. The eye sockets faced partially forward, giving T-Rex binocular vision with significant overlap in the visual fields of its 2 eyes. This provided depth perception far better than most dinosaurs, approaching that of modern hawks. Its vision was likely acute enough to spot prey at distances of several kilometers. Combined with its sense of smell, T-Rex was essentially a tracking machine, able to locate prey or carrion across vast distances. Its hearing was also sensitive, though probably not exceptional compared to other theropods. But combined with smell and vision, T-Rex had remarkable sensory capabilities that made it a formidable hunter or scavenger, and it was probably both, as most large predators are, taking whatever food opportunities arose. The question of whether T-Rex was primarily a predator or a scavenger has generated decades of debate. But the current consensus is that it was an opportunistic predator. It would hunt when opportunities arose, but would also scavenge when it found carcasses. The energy economics of being a 7-ton animal make pure scavenging unlikely in terrestrial environments. There simply wouldn't be enough carcasses available to support a population of T-Rex-sized scavengers. But supplementing hunting with scavenging whenever possible would make sense. Growth studies based on bone microstructure reveal that T-Rex grew rapidly as a teenager, adding as much as 2 kilograms per day during peak growth, reaching near adult size by about age 18. They continued growing more slowly afterward and could live into their late 20s or early 30s. Though few individuals survived that long, life was dangerous in the late Cretaceous. But theropods weren't just large predators. Many were much smaller and played different ecological roles. The dromaeosaurids, the raptors, were generally turkey to human-sized predators with an enlarged claw on each hind foot. Velociraptor, made famous by Jurassic Park, was actually quite small, about turkey-sized, not the human-sized monsters from the film. It had feathers, was probably quite intelligent for a dinosaur and may have hunted in packs, though this is debated. The largest dromaeosaurid was Utahraptor from the early Cretaceous of North America, which reached 6-7 meters in length and weighed perhaps 300 to 500 kilograms, about the size of a polar bear. It had a 23-centimetre sickle claw on each hind foot that it probably used to grip and subdue prey, perhaps climbing onto large herbivores and delivering slashing attacks. Some theropods became omnivorous or even herbivorous. The ornithomimids, ostrich dinosaurs, had toothless beaks and may have eaten plants, small animals and insects, similar to modern omnivorous birds. The therizinosaurs, bizarre pot-bellied dinosaurs with enormously long claws, were herbivorous despite being theropods, using their claws to pull down branches for feeding. As you drift deeper into relaxation, imagine yourself observing these predators from a safe distance. A T-Rex pauses at a riverbank, its massive head lowering to drink. The water ripples away from its snout. It raises its head, water dripping from its jaws, and looks around, those forward-facing eyes scanning the landscape, that powerful nose testing the air for scents. Satisfied that no threats are near, it moves on, each footstep sending tremors through the ground, a living reminder that for 165 million years, predatory dinosaurs ruled the food chains of terrestrial Earth. The predators hunt through the prehistoric night, and you drift with them into darkness, into sleep. Feathered dinosaurs. The origin of flight. Close your eyes and let go of the image of scaly reptilian dinosaurs that dominated popular culture for so long. The reality, we now know, is far more interesting. Many dinosaurs, perhaps most theropods, had feathers. Not just primitive fuzz, but in many cases complex feathers virtually identical to those of modern birds. This isn't speculation or artistic license. We have direct fossil evidence, preserved feathers showing structure down to individual barbs and barbules. The discovery of feathered dinosaurs is one of paleontology's greatest triumphs, fundamentally changing how we understand dinosaurs and their relationship to birds. It began in the 1860s with Archaeopteryx, but the revolution truly started in the 1990s when Chinese paleontologists began discovering exquisitely preserved fossils in the Liaoning province, where fine-grained volcanic ash had buried animals so quickly that soft tissues, including feathers, were preserved. Let's start with Archaeopteryx, discovered in Germany in 1861, just 2 years after Darwin published On the Origin of Species. Archaeopteryx lived about 150 million years ago, during the late Jurassic. It had a mix of reptilian and avian features that made it a perfect transitional fossil. It had teeth, unlike modern birds. It had a long, bony tail, unlike modern birds. It had claws on its wings, unlike most modern birds. But it also had feathers, clear, unmistakable flight feathers, arranged in patterns identical to those of modern birds. For decades, Archaeopteryx was considered the first bird, but we now understand that it's better described as a feathered dinosaur. It sits on the evolutionary line leading to modern birds, but it's not alone. There are numerous other feathered dinosaurs, some earlier than Archaeopteryx, some contemporaneous, some later. Birds didn't appear suddenly. They emerged gradually from theropod dinosaurs over millions of years, with the boundary between non-avian dinosaur and bird becoming increasingly blurry as we discover more fossils. One of the most complete feathered dinosaurs is Microraptor from the early Cretaceous of China, about 120 million years ago. Microraptor was crow-sized, about 77 centimeters long including its tail, and weighed approximately 1 kilogram. But here's what's extraordinary. It had 4 wings. Not just wings on its arms, as modern birds do, but also large flight feathers on its legs, creating a second pair of wings. Scientists initially puzzled over how Microraptor could fly with this configuration. Computer modelling suggested it probably glided rather than engaging in powered flight, perhaps using a biplane-like configuration, with the leg wings positioned behind and below the arm wings. It likely lived in trees, leaping between branches and gliding to lower levels or to adjacent trees. This 4-winged stage may represent an experimental phase in the evolution of flight, later abandoned as the 2-wing configuration proved more efficient. Another remarkable feathered dinosaur is Velociraptor, which we now know had feathers despite being depicted as scaly in Jurassic Park. Fossilized Velociraptor arm bones show quill knobs, small bumps where large feathers attach to the bone, identical to the quill knobs on modern birds. Velociraptor couldn't fly. It was too large and its arms were too short. But it had feathers on its arms and possibly elsewhere on its body. Why would a flightless predator have feathers? Several reasons are plausible. Feathers provide insulation, helping to regulate body temperature, crucial if Velociraptor had a metabolism higher than typical reptiles. Feathers could be used for display, with brightly coloured feathers signalling to potential mates or warning rivals. The arm feathers might have helped with balance during running or been used to cover eggs during incubation, as many modern birds do. Yutyrannus is even more remarkable. A 9-metre-long, 1.4-ton tyrannosaur from the early Cretaceous of China, covered in simple filamentous feathers. This is one of the largest dinosaurs known to have had feathers, challenging the assumption that large dinosaurs would have been too large to benefit from insulation. Yutyrannus lived in a cooler climate than most dinosaurs, and the feathers probably provided thermal insulation in cold conditions. This raises an interesting question. Did Tyrannosaurus rex have feathers? It's complicated. T-Rex lived in a warmer climate than Yutyrannus, and we have fossilized T-Rex skin showing scales, not feathers, at least on some parts of the body. The current best guess is that T-Rex was probably partly feathered, perhaps with feathers on the back, neck and tail, but scales on the legs, belly and possibly face. Young T-Rex might have been fully feathered for insulation, losing most feathers as they grew larger and no longer needed insulation. Feathers didn't evolve for flight, they evolved first for other purposes, and flight came later as a secondary innovation. The earliest feathers were probably simple filaments, similar to hair, providing insulation. From these evolved more complex structures, tufted filaments, branched filaments, and eventually true feathers with central shafts and side branches, barbs. Only after complex feathers evolved did some dinosaurs begin using them for flight. The evolution of flight itself is still debated. One hypothesis, the ground-up scenario, suggests that small predatory dinosaurs began leaping to catch prey, using proto-wings to extend their jump distance and control their trajectory. Natural selection favoured longer and more sophisticated wing surfaces, eventually producing powered flight. The trees down scenario suggests that small dinosaurs lived in trees and began gliding between branches, with natural selection favouring better gliding surfaces until powered flight emerged. The truth probably involves elements of both scenarios. Different lineages may have experimented with different paths to flight. Microraptor with its 4 wings represents one experiment, Archaeopteryx represents another. Modern birds descended from whichever lineage cracked the code most successfully, but numerous other feathered dinosaurs were also experimenting with aerial locomotion. What about feather colours? Can we know what colours feathered dinosaurs were? Remarkably, sometimes we can. Fossilised feathers preserve melanosomes, tiny structures within cells that produce pigment. Different melanosome shapes produce different colours. By examining melanosome shapes in fossilised feathers and comparing them to modern birds, scientists can estimate colours. Anchiornis, a small feathered dinosaur from the late Jurassic of China, has been reconstructed in considerable detail. It had a red crest on its head, a grey body with white stripes on the arms and legs, and a mostly black face. These colours aren't artistic speculation, they're based on direct examination of melanosome structures in the fossils. This is the most completely known colour pattern of any dinosaur. Other studies have examined feathers from Microraptor and found evidence for iridescent black feathers, similar to those of modern crows or grackles. The feathers would have shimmered with rainbow colours in sunlight, probably used for display to attract mates or intimidate rivals. The integration of feathers into our understanding of dinosaurs changes how we visualise them. They weren't slow, ponderous, lizard-like creatures. Many were active, possibly warm-blooded, covered in feathers, and behaviourally complex. The line between dinosaurs and birds isn't a boundary but a continuum, with Archaeopteryx and numerous other forms occupying intermediate positions. Modern birds are dinosaurs, not descended from dinosaurs, but actually dinosaurs members of the theropod lineage that survived the end Cretaceous extinction. There are more than 10,000 species of living dinosaurs, birds, today, more than any other terrestrial vertebrate group except fish. Every time you see a bird, you're seeing a dinosaur, a living representative of a lineage that originated 230 million years ago. As you drift toward deeper sleep, imagine a forest in the early Cretaceous 120 million years ago. The trees are conifers and primitive flowering plants. In the canopy, Microraptor perches on a branch, its 4 wings folded, its feathers glossy black with iridescent sheens. Below on the forest floor, Yutyrannus stalks through undergrowth, its shaggy coat of feathers swaying as it moves. A small troodontid, a bird-like dinosaur with large eyes, watches from a nearby branch, its feathered arms folded against its body. This is a world that would have seemed alien to paleontologists from the 1980s, but it's the world we now know existed. Feathers weren't rare. They were common, perhaps even universal among certain dinosaur groups. The Mesozoic wasn't an age of scaly monsters, but an age of feathered diversity, with dinosaurs exploring forms and functions that we're only now beginning to understand. Let the image of these feathered creatures accompany you into sleep, knowing that they weren't fantasy but reality, preserved in exquisite detail in the fossil record, waiting for scientists to discover and interpret them. Armour and defence, the herbivores fight back. Let your mind drift now to the herbivorous dinosaurs, which faced a constant challenge: how to avoid being eaten. The Mesozoic was dangerous for herbivores. Large predators prowled constantly, and unlike modern herbivores, dinosaurs couldn't hide in burrows or rely on intelligence and tool use to protect themselves. Instead, they evolved an astonishing array of defensive adaptations: armour, weapons, size, speed, and behaviour. Let's start with the ankylosaurs, the most heavily armoured dinosaurs. These were walking tanks, their entire backs covered in bony plates and spikes embedded in their skin. The armour wasn't just for show, it was functional. Capable of deflecting predator attacks, even a Tyrannosaurus would have difficulty penetrating an ankylosaur's armour. Ankylosaurus itself, the most famous member of the group, lived in western North America during the very latest Cretaceous, 68 and 66 million years ago, alongside T-Rex. It was about 6.5 metres long, 1.5 metres tall at the hips, and weighed perhaps 4 to 6 tons. Its back was covered with thick, bony plates called osteoderms, interspersed with rows of spikes along the sides. Even its eyelids had bony shutters that could close to protect the eyes. But the most remarkable feature was the tail club, a massive bony structure at the end of the tail, composed of several fused vertebrae and large osteoderms forming a heavy knob. This club could be swung with considerable force. Biomechanical analysis suggests it could deliver impacts capable of breaking bone. An ankylosaurus threatened by a tyrannosaur could swing its tail club at the predator's legs, potentially crippling it with a single blow. There's some fossil evidence supporting this scenario. Some tyrannosaur leg bones show healed fractures that could have been caused by impacts from tail clubs or other blunt trauma. While we can't be certain what caused any specific injury, the timing and nature of the fractures are consistent with ankylosaur tail clubs. Other ankylosaurs had different defences. Some, like Sauropelta, lacked tail clubs, but had extremely long spikes projecting from their shoulders and sides, making them difficult for predators to attack. Others, like Gastonia, had a combination of armour plates, spikes, and a partially clubbed tail, creating multiple layers of defence. The stegosaurs, plated dinosaurs, took a different approach. They lived earlier than most ankylosaurs, primarily in the Jurassic, though some survived into the Cretaceous. Stegosaurus, the most famous genus, had a double row of large bony plates running down its back and 4 long spikes on its tail, a weapon paleontologists humorously call the thagomizer, named after a Far Side cartoon. The plates were probably not primarily for defence. They were too thin and poorly positioned to provide armour. Instead, they were likely for display and thermoregulation. The plates were covered in skin with blood vessels running through them, allowing heat to be absorbed or released. A stegosaurus could probably regulate its body temperature by controlling blood flow to the plates, cooling down by increasing blood flow, like an elephant's ears, or warming up by orienting the plates toward the sun. But the tail spikes, those were definitely weapons. The spikes were up to 90 centimetres long, solid bone, sharp and positioned on a flexible tail that could be swung with considerable force. We have direct evidence of their use. An Allosaurus tail vertebra has been found with a hole that perfectly matches the size and shape of a Stegosaurus tail spike, proving that these animals could and did defend themselves against predators. The ceratopsians, horned dinosaurs, were another major group of herbivores with impressive defensive structures. Triceratops is the most famous, living in western North America in the latest Cretaceous, alongside T-Rex and Ankylosaurus. It was huge, 8-9 metres long, weighing 6-12 tons, with a massive skull featuring 3 horns and a large bony frill. The brow horns of Triceratops were formidable weapons, up to 1 metre long, solid bone, sharp-pointed. A charging Triceratops would have been like a 6-ton battering ram with spears on the front. Even a T-Rex would think twice about attacking an adult Triceratops head-on. Indeed, many T-Rex fossils show healed injuries, and while we can't always determine the cause, some are consistent with wounds from ceratopsian horns. The frill of Triceratops is more puzzling. It was made of bone, quite large, nearly a third of the total skull length, but not solid. It had large openings, fenestrae, covered only by skin, making it relatively lightweight but also not very protective. A predator biting the frill wouldn't hit solid bone but would tear through skin and into the fenestrae. This suggests the frill wasn't primarily for defense but for display and species recognition. Different ceratopsian species had dramatically different frills. Some were short, some long, some with elaborate scalloping and spikes, others relatively plain. These variations probably helped individuals recognize their own species and assess potential mates. The frills might also have been brightly coloured or patterned, though we don't have direct evidence for this. However, the frills weren't useless in defense. A Triceratops threatened by a predator could lower its head, presenting the horns and frill forward, protecting the vulnerable neck and body. The frill provided some protection even if it wasn't solid armour, and combined with the horns, created a formidable defensive posture. Evidence for Triceratops intraspecific combat, individuals fighting each other, is strong. Many Triceratops skulls show healed injuries from impacts that match the spacing and size of Triceratops horns. The frills often show gouges and punctures in patterns consistent with horn strikes. This suggests that Triceratops males, and possibly females, fought each other, perhaps competing for mates or establishing dominance hierarchies, using their horns in combat. The hadrosaurs, duck-billed dinosaurs, took yet another defensive approach. They largely eschewed physical defences in favour of acute senses, social behaviour and speed. Most hadrosaurs had no armour, no horns, no obvious weapons. Instead, they relied on large herds, keen eyesight and hearing, and the ability to run quickly to escape predators. Some hadrosaurs had elaborate head crests, hollow structures that contained extensions of the nasal passages. In Parasaurolophus, the crest was a long tube extending backward from the skull, nearly as long as the skull itself. Air breathed in through the nostrils would travel up and through the crest before reaching the lungs, creating a resonating chamber. Scientists have used CT scans to examine the internal structure of hadrosaur crests, and have even created models to test their acoustic properties. The results are remarkable. Different species would have produced different sounds, with Parasaurolophus capable of producing low-frequency bellows that could travel for several kilometres. These sounds were probably used for communication within herds, allowing individuals to stay in contact across distances or warning of predators. The advantage of herding is simple: many eyes are better than two. In a herd of 50 or 100 hadrosaurs, at least some individuals would likely spot an approaching predator, giving the group time to flee. Additionally, a predator confronting a herd has difficulty selecting a single target. The mass of bodies creates confusion, and the predator risks injury from being trampled or struck by the herbivore's tails. Some dinosaurs combined multiple defensive strategies. Pachycephalosaurs had thick, domed skulls. The bone on top of the skull could be up to 25 centimeters thick. For years, scientists assumed these domes were used in headbutting contests, like modern bighorn sheep. However, more recent analysis suggests that head-to-head impacts would have been dangerous, potentially causing neck injuries. Instead, pachycephalosaurs might have used flank butting, striking opponents on the sides, or the domes might have been primarily for display, with the thick bone protecting the brain from incidental impacts during aggressive displays. The diversity of defensive strategies among herbivorous dinosaurs is remarkable. Armour, horns, tail weapons, speed, herding, acoustic warning systems, headbutting structures, dinosaurs evolved virtually every defensive mechanism that vertebrates have ever employed. This diversity was driven by predation pressure, the constant threat from theropods, combined with the opportunity provided by 165 million years of evolution in varied environments. As you sink deeper into relaxation, imagine yourself observing a late Cretaceous ecosystem in western North America, 67 million years ago. a herd of Triceratops browses on low vegetation, their frills catching the late afternoon sun. Nearby, an Ankylosaurus rests in the shade, its armour making it essentially invulnerable. In the distance, a herd of Edmontosaurus, a hadrosaur, grazes in the open. Dozens of individuals staying close together, heads periodically lifting to scan for danger. A T-Rex appears on the horizon. The Edmontosaurus herd notices immediately. Several individuals make alarm calls, and the entire herd begins moving away, not panicking but deliberately putting distance between themselves and the predator. The Triceratops barely react. They're confident in their defences, continuing to browse, occasionally glancing at the Tyrannosaur to track its position. The Ankylosaurus doesn't even look up. What threat could any predator pose to a walking tank? This was the Mesozoic, an arms race between predators and prey, driving the evolution of increasingly sophisticated attacks and defences. And tonight, as you drift towards sleep, you can rest assured that you don't face such dangers, that the age of dinosaurs is long past, and that these ancient dramas played out 66 million years before humans appeared. The herbivores continue their eternal vigilance, and you drift with them into the quiet darkness of sleep. Eggs, nests, and parental care. Family life of dinosaurs. Let your breathing slow as we explore one of the most intimate aspects of dinosaur life, their reproduction and care of young. For decades, dinosaurs were assumed to be like modern reptiles, laying eggs and providing little or no parental care, with hatchlings emerging fully independent and never seeing their parents. But fossil discoveries over the past few decades have revolutionized this understanding, revealing that many dinosaurs were sophisticated parents with complex social behaviors. The first major breakthrough came in the 1970s in Montana, where paleontologist Jack Horner discovered a nesting site of Maiasaura, a hadrosaur whose name means good mother lizard. The discovery was remarkable. Multiple nests arranged in a colonial nesting ground, with nests spaced about 7 meters apart, roughly the length of an adult Maiasaura. This spacing suggests that adults were actually present at the nests, occupying the space between them. The nests themselves were mounds of vegetation about 2 meters in diameter, scooped out in the center to create a bowl for the eggs. Each nest contained 30-40 eggs arranged in layers, suggesting the mother laid them over several sessions, covering each layer with vegetation before adding the next. The vegetation would have generated heat as it decomposed, incubating the eggs, similar to modern megapode birds. But here's what was truly revolutionary. The nests contained not just eggs, but also juveniles at different growth stages. Some juveniles had well-worn teeth, indicating they had been feeding for some time after hatching. This meant the young stayed in or near the nest, being fed by parents, rather than immediately dispersing after hatching. This was the first clear evidence of extended parental care in dinosaurs. Further supporting this interpretation, the leg bones of juvenile Maiasaura found in nests were poorly ossified, not yet fully formed into hard bone, suggesting the hatchlings couldn't walk well and couldn't have left the nest to feed themselves. They would have been dependent on parents bringing food, probably regurgitated plant material, similar to how modern birds feed their chicks. The colonial nesting, multiple females nesting close together, also suggests social behaviour beyond simple parental care. Colonial nesting provides advantages, more eyes to watch for predators, potential for cooperative defence, and possibly sharing of parenting duties. Modern birds that nest colonially often have complex social structures, and Maiasaura may have been similar. Another remarkable nesting site was discovered in Mongolia in the 1990s, a site with numerous oviraptor nests. Oviraptor was a small, possibly omnivorous theropod from the late Cretaceous. The name means egg thief, because the first specimen was found on top of eggs assumed to be from another dinosaur. But the Mongolian discovery revealed the truth. The eggs were Oviraptor's own, and the adult had been incubating them when it died. Multiple adult Oviraptor skeletons have now been found in brooding postures on nests, sitting on the eggs with their arms spread over them, legs folded beneath, tail wrapped around the clutch. This is identical to the brooding posture of modern birds, and it almost certainly served the same purpose, keeping the eggs warm and protected. Some specimens even have fossilized embryos inside the eggs, confirming that the eggs belong to Oviraptor. The brooding posture suggests that Oviraptor, and probably other small theropods, had metabolic rates high enough to generate significant body heat. Otherwise, sitting on eggs wouldn't warm them. This is more evidence that many theropods were warm-blooded, or at least had elevated metabolic rates compared to typical reptiles. Oviraptor eggs were arranged in neat circles or spirals in the nest, partially buried in sediment, with the pointed ends angled toward the center and downward. This arrangement is sophisticated, ensuring that all eggs receive warmth from the brooding parent while allowing for air circulation. The eggs were elongated rather than spherical, similar to bird eggs, and probably had hard shells rather than the leathery shells of most reptile eggs. Even more remarkable, some Oviraptorosaur nests contain eggs at different developmental stages, suggesting that the female may have laid eggs over several days or weeks, continuing to add eggs to the nest over time. The brooding adult would have been incubating early eggs while later eggs were still being laid, a reproductive strategy found in some modern birds. Sauropods, the giant long-necked dinosaurs, also nested colonially, but they used a different strategy. Sauropod eggs were relatively small. Even the largest sauropods laid eggs only about the size of soccer balls. The eggs were laid in lines or arcs, not carefully arranged like theropod eggs, and there's no evidence of nest building or brooding. This suggests that sauropods used a reptilian reproductive strategy: lay eggs, bury them in sand or vegetation, let environmental heat incubate them, and provide no parental care after laying. The hatchlings would emerge weighing only a few kilograms, completely independent, facing a dangerous world with no parental protection. This reproductive strategy had advantages and disadvantages. The advantage was efficiency. A female could lay eggs and immediately resume feeding and other activities, not spending time incubating or caring for young. The disadvantage was that hatchlings faced extremely high mortality. Most would be eaten by predators before reaching large size, but enough survived. Only a few % needed to reach adulthood for the population to be maintained. The rapid growth rates of sauropods helped compensate for high juvenile mortality. Studies of sauropod bone microstructure show that they grew astonishingly fast when young. A baby Apatosaurus might gain several kilograms per day, reaching 1-2 tons within a few years. This rapid growth minimized the time spent in vulnerable size classes where predators could easily kill them. Interestingly, there's some evidence that juvenile sauropods may have formed creches, groups of same-aged young travelling together without adults. Fossilized trackways show groups of similar-sized small sauropods moving together, suggesting social behavior among juveniles even if parents didn't care for them. Traveling in groups would provide some protection through numbers. Predators would have more difficulty isolating and killing individuals from a group. Triceratops and other ceratopsians also show evidence of complex social behavior, though the details of their parental care remain uncertain. Bone beds, deposits containing numerous individuals that died together, suggest that ceratopsians travelled in herds. Some bone beds contain primarily juveniles, suggesting age-segregated groups, while others contain all ages, suggesting multi-generational herds. Fossilized trackways of ceratopsians show adults and juveniles moving together, with smaller footprints, juveniles, sometimes in the centre surrounded by larger footprints, adults, suggesting that adults protected young by keeping them in the middle of the group. This is similar to the protective formations used by modern elephants and other herd animals. The diversity of reproductive strategies among dinosaurs is remarkable. Small theropods brooded their eggs and possibly fed their young, similar to modern birds. Hadrosaurs used colonial nesting with extended parental care, feeding helpless hatchlings in nests. Sauropods laid eggs and left, providing no parental care but compensating with rapid juvenile growth. Ceratopsians and other ornithischians may have had intermediate strategies, with some protection of young within herds but less intensive care than hadrosaurs. This diversity reflects 165 million years of evolution in varied environments. Different groups evolved different solutions to the challenge of reproduction, adapted to their specific ecologies, body sizes, and lifestyles. The fact that we can reconstruct these behaviors from fossilized bones, eggs, and trackways is remarkable, testament to the richness of the fossil record when circumstances preserve behaviors as well as anatomy. As you drift deeper towards sleep, imagine a Maiasaura nesting colony, 75 million years ago in what is now Montana. Dozens of nests dot a clearing near a river. Adult Maiasaura move between nests, bringing vegetation to their young. Juveniles of various sizes call to their parents, begging for food. Newly hatched babies, only days old, huddle in nests, unable yet to walk far. Older juveniles, several months old, venture short distances from nests but stay close to adults. The scene is noisy. Calls, bellows, the rustling of vegetation, the trampling of feet. It's chaotic but organised, a community raising the next generation. And nearby predators watch. A troodon lurks at the edge of the clearing, waiting for an opportunity to snatch an unwary juvenile. The adults remain vigilant, sometimes charging at the predator to drive it away. This was family life in the Mesozoic, more complex than we once thought, more sophisticated than simple reptilian reproduction, a preview of the parental care that would characterize birds and mammals in later eras. The nesting ground grows quiet as night falls, parents settling near their nests, juveniles quieting, predators retreating, and you, observing from impossibly distant time, drift with them into darkness, into sleep, into dreams perhaps populated by ancient parents caring for their young. Dinosaur intelligence and behaviour, more than simple beasts. Let your mind relax as we explore a question that has fascinated paleontologists for decades. How intelligent were dinosaurs? For much of the 20th century, dinosaurs were portrayed as dim-witted creatures, lumbering through their lives with barely enough brain power to find food and avoid danger. But modern research reveals a far more complex picture. Some dinosaurs were remarkably intelligent, with cognitive abilities that may have rivaled or exceeded modern birds and mammals. Intelligence is difficult to measure in living animals, and even more challenging in extinct ones. We can't give dinosaurs IQ tests, or observe their problem-solving abilities. Instead, we rely on indirect evidence, brain size relative to body size, brain structure revealed through CT scans of skulls, and behavioural evidence from fossils like trackways, nests and tool use, though dinosaurs never developed tools in the human sense. Let's start with Troodon, often cited as one of the most intelligent dinosaurs. Troodon was a small theropod from the late Cretaceous of North America, about 2 meters long and weighing perhaps 50 kilograms. Its brain, relative to its body size, was proportionally larger than most dinosaurs, comparable to or exceeding that of modern emus or ostriches. Its brain-to-body ratio was similar to some modern mammals, suggesting considerable cognitive capacity. Troodon's brain structure, revealed through CT scans of fossilized skulls, shows enlarged regions associated with vision and coordination. The optic lobes were particularly large, and the eyes themselves were enormous, among the largest relative to body size of any dinosaur. The eyes faced partially forward, providing binocular vision with good depth perception. This combination, large brain, large eyes, binocular vision, suggests Troodon was an active predator that used visual acuity and coordination to hunt. Troodon's teeth were small and numerous, with serrations on both edges, suitable for processing small prey. Its hands were grasping with opposable digits, allowing it to manipulate objects. Its legs were long relative to its body, suggesting it was a fast runner. All of this paints a picture of an agile, intelligent predator, possibly hunting in low-light conditions. The large eyes would have been useful for night vision, pursuing small mammals, lizards, and perhaps young dinosaurs. But intelligence isn't just about hunting. Social behavior is often associated with intelligence. Coordinating with others, recognizing individuals, maintaining social hierarchies all require cognitive capacity. And here we find tantalizing evidence that some dinosaurs lived in complex social groups. Deinonychus, the famous raptor from the early Cretaceous of North America, has been found in association with remains of larger herbivorous dinosaurs in ways that suggest pack hunting. At one site in Montana, several Deinonychus skeletons were found with a partial skeleton of Tenontosaurus, a larger herbivore. The interpretation is that multiple Deinonychus attacked the Tenontosaurus together, with some dying during the encounter. Pack hunting requires coordination, communication, and social bonding, all indicators of intelligence. Modern pack hunters like wolves and lions have complex social structures with hierarchies, role differentiation, and learned hunting strategies. If Deinonychus hunted in packs, it likely had similar cognitive abilities, though we can't know the specifics of their social organization. Other evidence for social behavior comes from trackways. In Colorado, a trackway shows a group of theropods moving together in the same direction, with footprints of different sizes suggesting a mixed-age group. The trackway shows no sign of chaos or disorganization. The animals moved purposefully in the same direction, maintaining spacing, suggesting coordinated group movement rather than random aggregation. Hadrosaurs show perhaps the strongest evidence for complex social behaviour. The colonial nesting sites we discussed earlier require not just maternal instinct but social coordination. Females choosing to nest near each other, maintaining appropriate spacing, potentially cooperating in nest defence. The elaborate crests of many hadrosaurs, used for producing species-specific calls, suggest sophisticated acoustic communication within herds. Some hadrosaur bone beds, deposits where numerous individuals died together, show evidence of age and sex segregation, with some sites containing primarily adults of one sex, others containing juveniles, suggesting that hadrosaurs formed different types of social groups at different life stages or times of year, similar to modern ungulates like elephants or buffalo. Ceratopsians also show evidence of herding behaviour. The bone beds of Centrosaurus in Alberta contain thousands of individuals that apparently died together during a catastrophic event, possibly drowning while crossing a river during seasonal migration. The presence of all ages and sizes suggests multi-generational herds travelling together, a social structure that requires recognition of kin, maintenance of group cohesion, and coordination of movement. The horns and frills of ceratopsians, with their elaborate species-specific morphology and evidence for intraspecific combat, suggest complex social interactions. Individuals would need to recognize other members of their species, assess the size and quality of horns and frills as indicators of strength or fitness, remember the results of past encounters, and adjust their behavior accordingly. This level of social sophistication requires considerable cognitive capacity. Even sauropods, often portrayed as the dim giants of the dinosaur world, show evidence for more complex behaviour than previously thought. Trackways from Portugal show a group of sauropods moving together, with smaller individuals in the centre surrounded by larger ones, a protective formation suggesting some level of social organisation and care for young. Furthermore, sauropods faced cognitive challenges simply from their size and anatomy. Coordinating a 30-metre-long body with a tiny head at the end of a 10-metre neck requires sophisticated proprioception, awareness of body position, and motor control. The neural challenges of being a sauropod may have driven brain evolution even if they weren't particularly intelligent in other ways. One measure of intelligence is brain structure diversity. Different regions of the brain control different functions: vision, hearing, smell, movement, social cognition, memory, decision-making. More complex brains have more specialized regions, indicating greater capacity for processing different types of information. CT scans of dinosaur brain cases reveal that different dinosaur groups had different patterns of brain specialization. Theropods typically had enlarged regions for vision and coordination. Hadrosaurs had large regions for hearing and possibly for processing acoustic communication. Ceratopsians had regions associated with smell, perhaps important for finding food or recognizing individuals by scent. This diversity suggests that different dinosaur groups evolved different types of intelligence adapted to their specific lifestyles. There wasn't a single type of dinosaur intelligence, but rather multiple types. Just as modern mammals show diverse cognitive abilities adapted to their niches, dolphins are intelligent in ways relevant to their aquatic social lifestyle, while solitary predators like tigers have intelligence focused on hunting and spatial navigation. One limitation on dinosaur intelligence was probably their metabolic rate. Intelligence is metabolically expensive. Brains consume disproportionate amounts of energy relative to their size. Mammals and birds, with their high metabolic rates, can afford to maintain large, energy-hungry brains. If dinosaurs had lower metabolic rates, they might have been constrained in how much brain tissue they could support. However, increasing evidence suggests that many dinosaurs, particularly theropods, had elevated metabolic rates, possibly approaching those of modern birds. If so, metabolic constraints on brain size would have been less severe, allowing for the evolution of larger, more complex brains. Did any dinosaurs approach human-level intelligence? Almost certainly not. Human intelligence is extraordinary even compared to other mammals, characterized by language, abstract reasoning, technological innovation, and cultural transmission of knowledge. No dinosaur shows evidence of these capabilities. But could some dinosaurs have approached the intelligence of modern corvids, crows and ravens, or parrots, which are among the most intelligent birds? Possibly. Troodon and other troodontids, with their large brains and complex sensory capabilities, may have had cognitive abilities comparable to these birds. Small social theropods that hunted cooperatively may have had intelligence focused on social cognition and coordination. The reality is that we're only beginning to understand dinosaur cognition. New techniques, better brain reconstructions from CT scans, analysis of inner ear structure to understand sensory capabilities, biomechanical modelling of behaviour are providing insights that weren't possible a generation ago. As these techniques improve, our understanding of dinosaur intelligence will become more sophisticated. As you drift toward deeper sleep, imagine a troodon moving through a late Cretaceous forest at dusk. Its large eyes are adapted for low-light vision. It pauses, head cocking to one side, large brain processing sensory information. It sees movement, a small mammal venturing from its burrow. The troodon crouches, muscles tensing. It calculates distance, trajectory, timing. Then it springs, covering the distance in 2 quick leaps, hands grasping, jaws closing. The hunt is successful. This was intelligence in action. Not human intelligence, but intelligence nonetheless. The ability to perceive, process, plan, and execute. The ability that allowed dinosaurs to dominate terrestrial ecosystems for 165 million years. Intelligence adapted to their world, their bodies, their lifestyles. Different from ours, but no less real. The intelligent dinosaurs continue their ancient lives, solving the problems their world presented, and you drift with them into the quiet darkness of sleep. The sounds of the Mesozoic. What did dinosaurs sound like? Close your eyes and let your imagination wander to the soundscape of the Mesozoic. What did dinosaurs sound like? For most of cinema history, dinosaurs have roared, bellowed, and screeched with sounds borrowed from elephants, lions, and various other modern animals. But what sounds did dinosaurs actually make? Recent paleontological research has given us surprising insights into this question, revealing a world that probably sounded quite different from movie portrayals. The first thing to understand is that dinosaurs probably couldn't roar. Roaring, as modern lions and tigers do it, requires specific anatomical structures, particularly vocal folds, vocal cords, and larynx structures that allow the production of low-frequency, loud sounds. Modern crocodiles and birds, the closest living relatives of dinosaurs, don't have the anatomical equipment for true roaring. Instead, they use different sound-producing mechanisms. Modern birds produce sound using a syrinx, a vocal organ located where the trachea branches into the 2 bronchi. The syrinx contains vibrating membranes that produce sound as air passes through. Birds can control airflow independently to each bronchus, allowing them to produce 2 sounds simultaneously. This is why some birds can sing such complex songs. The syrinx is a bird innovation. No other animals have it. Did dinosaurs have a syrinx? For non-avian dinosaurs, we don't know. Soft tissue like the syrinx doesn't fossilize except in extraordinary circumstances. However, birds evolved from theropod dinosaurs, so at some point in the theropod lineage, the syrinx must have evolved. Recent research suggests it may have appeared relatively late, possibly only in birdline dinosaurs, not in all theropods. This means that many theropods probably made sounds more like modern crocodiles than like modern birds. Crocodiles produce sounds using their larynx, but in a different way than mammals. They can produce hisses, grunts, bellows, and low-frequency rumbles. Some of these sounds are low enough that humans hear them more as vibrations than as audible sound. The most dramatic sound crocodiles make is the bellow, a loud, low-frequency vocalization used during mating season. The bellow is produced with the mouth closed, with sound resonating in the throat and nasal cavities. When a crocodile bellows, the water around it visibly vibrates from the sound's intensity. Large theropods like Tyrannosaurus rex probably produce similar sounds. Deep, rumbling bellows that would have been felt as much as heard, carrying for kilometers across Cretaceous landscapes. Some theropods may have made sounds using structures other than vocal organs. Closed mouth vocalizations, where sound is produced with the mouth shut, resonating in internal cavities, could be produced without sophisticated vocal structures. The air sacs that extended throughout theropod skeletons might have acted as resonating chambers, amplifying sounds in ways that are difficult to reconstruct. For hadrosaurs, the duck-billed dinosaurs, we have much better evidence for sound production because of their elaborate hollow head crests. As we discussed earlier, these crests contained extensions of the nasal passages, creating resonating chambers. Scientists have used CT scans to map the internal structure of these crests and have created physical models and computer simulations to predict what sounds they would produce. Parasaurolophus, with its long, backward-pointing crest, would have produced low-frequency sounds, deep bellows with fundamental frequencies around 30-50 Hz, similar to the lowest notes on a tuba. These sounds would have carried for several kilometers, allowing individuals to communicate across distances. The sound would have been distinctive, with harmonics and tonal qualities specific to Parasaurolophus, allowing individuals to recognize their own species and possibly even individuals. Different hadrosaur species had different crest shapes and sizes, and computer modeling shows that each would have produced distinctive sounds. Corythosaurus had a tall, helmet-like crest, producing mid-frequency sounds. Lambeosaurus had a hatchet-shaped crest producing sounds with different harmonic structures. These different sounds would have prevented confusion between species, allowing individuals to find and communicate with their own kind. Juvenile hadrosaurs had smaller crests than adults, and this would have affected their vocalizations. Juveniles would have produced higher frequency sounds than adults. This age-related difference in calls could have helped maintain social structure within herds, with adults recognizing juveniles by their voices and juveniles recognizing adults. For ceratopsians like Triceratops, sound production is less well understood. They lacked elaborate hollow structures like hadrosaur crests, so if they vocalized, they probably used simpler mechanisms, laryngeal vocalizations similar to crocodiles, or possibly closed-mouth bellowing. Their large sinus cavities might have served as resonating chambers, amplifying sounds. Though without fossilized soft tissue, this remains speculative. Ankylosaurs and stegosaurs probably vocalized, though we have little direct evidence for how. Their simple skulls lack obvious sound-producing structures, suggesting they used basic laryngeal vocalizations, hisses, grunts, bellows. Their heavily armored bodies might have been used to produce non-vocal sounds, banging armor plates together, stomping feet, swishing tails, for communication or intimidation. Sauropods present an intriguing puzzle. Their enormously long necks pose challenges for sound production. If sound was produced in the larynx, it had to travel up a neck that could be 10+ meters long before exiting the mouth or nostrils. This long airway would affect sound properties, possibly producing unusual harmonic structures. Some researchers have suggested that sauropods might have produced sounds by inflating throat sacs, expandable pouches of skin that would vibrate when filled with air, similar to the vocal sacs of modern frogs or the throat pouches of male prairie chickens. These structures wouldn't fossilize, but they could explain how sauropods produce sounds despite their extreme anatomy. Additionally, sauropods might have produced non-vocal sounds. A tail crack, as suggested for Diplodocus, would be an acoustic signal, a loud crack as the tail tip exceeded the speed of sound. The footsteps of a 50-ton sauropod would have been audible from great distances, the ground vibrating with each step. Even the digestive sounds, the rumbling of fermenting plant material in massive guts, might have been audible externally. Small theropods and other small dinosaurs probably produced higher frequency sounds than large dinosaurs. Size affects sound production. Smaller animals generally produce higher frequencies than larger animals. Think of the difference between a mouse's squeak and an elephant's trumpet. A chicken-sized dinosaur would probably produce sounds in a higher frequency range than a car-sized dinosaur. Some small theropods might have had bird-like vocalizations if they had evolved syrinx-like structures. The closest dinosaurian relatives of birds, dromaeosaurs like Velociraptor, troodontids like Troodon, and oviraptorosaurs, might have been capable of more complex vocalizations than other dinosaurs, though this is speculative. What about non-vocal sounds? Many animals produce sounds mechanically. Birds rustle their wings, gorillas beat their chests, kangaroos thump the ground with their feet. Dinosaurs probably did similar things. A displaying Pachycephalosaurus might have butted its head against trees or rocks, producing loud thunks that advertised its presence. A threatened Stegosaurus might have rustled its plates, creating a rattling sound. Theropods might have snapped their jaws together, creating intimidating clacks. Footsteps would have been a major component of the Mesozoic soundscape. A herd of hadrosaurs on the move would have created a rumbling, trampling sound, audible from kilometers away. A hunting tyrannosaur would have tried to move quietly, but a 7-ton animal can never be completely silent. Branches would snap, vegetation would rustle, and the ground would compress under each footfall. The ambient soundscape of the Mesozoic would have been quite different from today's world. Without songbirds, which evolved later, the dawn chorus would have been absent or very different. Without mammalian sounds, no howling wolves, trumpeting elephants, or chattering monkeys, the overall acoustic environment would have had a different character. Instead, there would be the bellows of hadrosaurs, the rumbles of tyrannosaurs, the hisses of smaller theropods, the rustling and crashing of mega herbivores moving through forests. Insect sounds would have been present. Some Mesozoic insects almost certainly produced sounds by stridulation, rubbing body parts together, or wing vibration, as modern grasshoppers, crickets, and cicadas do. Water sounds, rivers, rain, ocean waves would have been similar to today's. Wind through conifer needles would have created a distinctive rustling different from the sound of wind through modern deciduous leaves. As you drift deeper into relaxation, imagine yourself in a late Cretaceous forest at dawn. The air is still cool, mist rising from a nearby stream. In the distance you hear a low rumble, a hadrosaur herd calling to each other, coordinating their day's movements. The sound is felt as much as heard, a vibration in your chest. Closer, a smaller theropod hisses, a sharp reptilian sound, warning others away from its territory. A heavy footfall shakes the ground slightly. Something large is moving through the forest, though you can't see it. The footsteps are rhythmic, ponderous, accompanied by the creaking and rustling of disturbed vegetation. The sounds fade as the animal moves away. Birds call in the canopy. These are actual birds, early members of modern bird groups. Their songs simpler than their modern descendants, but still melodic. This is the soundscape of the Mesozoic, alien in some ways, familiar in others. A world where the dominant sounds were not mammalian but reptilian, where the largest animals produced the deepest sounds, where complex communication occurred through bellows, hisses, and resonating head crests, rather than songs and howls. Let these ancient sounds accompany you into sleep, imagining a world where the acoustic environment was fundamentally different, shaped by the animals that dominated it. Metabolism and physiology. Were dinosaurs warm-blooded? Let your body relax completely as we explore one of the most fundamental questions about dinosaur biology. Were they warm-blooded like mammals and birds, cold-blooded like modern reptiles, or something in between? This question has profound implications for understanding dinosaur behavior, ecology, and evolution. The answer, as we've discovered, is complex and fascinating. For most of the 20th century, dinosaurs were assumed to be cold-blooded, ectothermic, relying on external heat sources to regulate body temperature, like modern lizards and crocodiles. This assumption was based on their reptilian heritage and influenced how dinosaurs were portrayed, as slow, sluggish creatures that basked in the sun to warm up and became inactive at night or in cool weather. But starting in the 1960s and 1970s, scientists began questioning this assumption. Several lines of evidence suggested that at least some dinosaurs might have been warm-blooded, endothermic, generating their own internal heat through metabolism, like modern mammals and birds. The first major challenge to cold-blooded dinosaurs came from their anatomy. Many dinosaurs, particularly theropods, had erect postures with legs positioned directly under their bodies, similar to mammals and birds, different from the sprawling posture of lizards and crocodiles. Erect posture is associated with sustained activity and efficient locomotion, characteristics more typical of endotherms than ectotherms. Many theropods also had bones with microscopic structures similar to mammal and bird bones rather than reptile bones. When bones are cut into thin sections and examined under a microscope, they reveal growth patterns. Dinosaur bones often show fibrolamellar bone, a type of bone that forms during rapid growth, typical of endothermic animals with fast metabolisms. In contrast, most modern reptiles have lamellar zonal bone that forms more slowly, with growth rings marking seasonal pauses in growth. The presence of fibrolamellar bone in dinosaurs suggests they grew rapidly, which in turn suggests high metabolic rates, which is characteristic of endothermy. Growth studies based on bone microstructure reveal that many dinosaurs grew astonishingly fast. Tyrannosaurs added up to 2 kilograms per day during peak growth. Sauropods grew even faster. Such rapid growth is difficult to sustain without a high metabolic rate generating energy and body heat. Another line of evidence comes from predator-prey ratios. In modern ecosystems, the ratio of predator biomass to prey biomass is much lower for endothermic predators than for ectothermic predators. This is because endotherms need more food to fuel their high metabolisms. A lion needs to kill and eat much more than a crocodile of the same size. By examining fossil assemblages and calculating the ratio of predatory dinosaurs to herbivorous dinosaurs, some researchers have argued that the ratios are consistent with endothermic predators, not ectothermic ones. The discovery of feathered dinosaurs provided more evidence. Feathers are excellent insulators, useful for retaining body heat. Why would an ectothermic animal need insulation? Ectotherms want to gain heat from their environment, not retain it. The fact that many theropods had feathers suggests they were generating significant internal heat that needed to be conserved, characteristic of endothermy. Furthermore, some small feathered theropods have been found in brooding postures on nests, sitting on eggs to incubate them. This behaviour only makes sense if the animal is generating body heat to warm the eggs. An ectothermic animal sitting on eggs wouldn't warm them unless external temperatures were high, in which case sitting on them would be unnecessary. Geographic distribution also provides clues. Some dinosaurs lived at high latitudes where temperatures would have been cool, even during the warm Mesozoic climate. Dinosaur fossils have been found north of the Arctic Circle and in Antarctica. These areas experienced polar darkness in winter, months without sunlight, and would have been too cold for purely ectothermic animals to remain active. The presence of dinosaurs in these environments suggests they could maintain activity levels despite cool temperatures, consistent with endothermy. However, not all evidence points toward endothermy. Large dinosaurs, particularly sauropods, present a puzzle. Calculations of the metabolic heat generated by an 80-ton sauropod, if it were fully endothermic like a mammal, suggest it would overheat unless it had extraordinary cooling mechanisms. The surface area to volume ratio of such large animals means they would have difficulty dissipating metabolic heat. This has led to the concept of gigantothermy, or inertial homeothermy, the idea that very large animals can maintain stable body temperatures simply because their mass acts as a thermal buffer, warming and cooling very slowly. A 50-ton sauropod would take days to heat up or cool down significantly, meaning its body temperature would remain relatively constant regardless of whether it was generating metabolic heat internally. Such animals might have had lower metabolic rates than true endotherms while still maintaining stable body temperatures. Modern consensus is moving toward a more nuanced view. Dinosaurs probably exhibited a range of metabolic strategies, with different groups having different physiologies. Small to medium theropods, particularly those closely related to birds, were probably fully endothermic, with high metabolic rates, insulation, feathers, and behavioral thermoregulation. Large theropods might have been mesothermic, having metabolic rates intermediate between typical ectotherms and endotherms. Sauropods were probably gigantotherms, their large size providing thermal stability with modest metabolic rates. Ornithischians like hadrosaurs and ceratopsians might have been mesothermic or gigantothermic depending on their size. Small ornithischians might have needed higher metabolic rates to maintain body temperature in cool conditions, while large ones benefited from gigantothermy. This mosaic of metabolic strategies would make sense given dinosaur diversity. They occupied a vast range of body sizes, from chicken-sized to multi-ton giants, and lived in varied environments from polar regions to deserts. Different physiologies would have been optimal for different sizes and environments. Another aspect of physiology worth considering is respiration, how dinosaurs breathed. Modern birds have a unique respiratory system with air sacs extending throughout their bodies, even into their bones. Air flows in one direction through the lungs, providing continuous oxygen extraction, more efficient than the two-way breathing of mammals. This respiratory system is so efficient that birds can fly at altitudes where mammals would suffer from hypoxia. Evidence suggests that at least some dinosaurs had air sac systems similar to birds. Certain bones in theropods and sauropods show pneumatic features, hollow spaces connected to air sacs. CT scans of these bones reveal internal structures consistent with air sac invasion. If dinosaurs had bird-like respiratory systems, they could have maintained high activity levels even with lower oxygen concentrations in the Mesozoic atmosphere. though whether atmospheric oxygen was actually lower is debated. This efficient respiratory system would have supported high metabolic rates in active dinosaurs. It would have been particularly advantageous for sauropods, whose long necks created challenges for breathing. Moving air up and down a 10-meter neck would be energetically expensive with two-way breathing, but one-way airflow through a bird-like system would be more efficient. Heart structure is another aspect of physiology that affects metabolism. Endothermic animals need hearts capable of maintaining high blood pressure and rapid circulation to support their metabolisms. Unfortunately, hearts don't fossilize, so we can't directly study dinosaur hearts. However, indirect evidence from bone structure and inferred activity levels suggests that active dinosaurs needed, and probably had, powerful hearts similar to those of modern birds and mammals. The question of dinosaur metabolism connects to broader questions about dinosaur behavior and ecology. If dinosaurs were endothermic or mesothermic, they could have been active at night, in cool weather, and during winter. They could have sustained high activity levels for extended periods, long-distance migration, prolonged pursuit of prey, intensive parental care. Their geographic ranges could have extended into temperate and even polar regions. If some dinosaurs were ectothermic, they would have been more restricted, active only during warm times and in warm climates, inactive or sluggish when cool, requiring long periods of basking to reach optimal body temperatures. Their behaviours and ecology would have been more similar to modern crocodiles and large lizards. The evidence increasingly supports the former scenario. Dinosaurs as active, widespread, diverse animals with physiologies supporting sustained activity. This makes sense given their ecological dominance for 165 million years. Ectothermic animals, with their lower energy requirements and activity limitations, are unlikely to have dominated terrestrial ecosystems as completely as dinosaurs did. As your breathing becomes deeper and slower, imagine a tyrannosaur hunting at dusk in a late Cretaceous forest. The sun has set, temperatures are dropping, but the tyrannosaur remains active, its metabolism generating internal heat, its insulating covering of primitive feathers retaining that heat. It doesn't need to bask to warm up or become sluggish in the cooling air. Its heart pumps powerful streams of blood through its body. Its lungs, connected to air sacs throughout its skeleton, extract oxygen efficiently with each breath. This is an animal built for activity, for sustained hunting, for dominating its ecosystem regardless of time of day or season. An animal more like modern mammals and birds than like modern reptiles. An animal that challenges our assumptions about what reptiles can be. The metabolically active dinosaurs continue their ancient lives, and you drift with them, your own metabolism slowing as you sink towards sleep, your body cooling slightly as rest takes over, mimicking in small ways the thermoregulation that dinosaurs mastered millions of years ago. Colours and display, the visual world of dinosaurs. Let your eyelids grow heavy as we explore the visual appearance of dinosaurs, their colours, patterns, and displays. For most of paleontology's history, dinosaur colours were completely unknown. An artist had to guess, often portraying dinosaurs in drab greys, browns, and greens, similar to modern large animals like elephants and rhinoceros. But remarkable fossil discoveries over the past 2 decades have revolutionized our understanding, revealing that at least some dinosaurs were brightly coloured with elaborate patterns. The breakthrough came from the study of exceptionally preserved fossils from China's Liaoning province. These fossils, dated to the early Cretaceous about 125 million years ago, preserve not just bones, but also soft tissues including feathers. When paleontologists examined these feathered fossils under electron microscopes, they discovered preserved melanosomes, tiny organelles within cells that produce pigments. Melanosomes come in different shapes, and each shape produces different colours. Elongated melanosomes produce black or grey colours. Spherical melanosomes produce reddish-brown colours. The absence of melanosomes, or the presence of other structures, can produce white, yellow, or iridescent colours. By examining the shapes and arrangements of melanosomes in fossilised feathers, scientists can determine the original colours of those feathers with reasonable confidence. The first dinosaur to have its colours reconstructed was Sinosauropteryx, a small theropod about the size of a chicken covered in primitive feather-like filaments. Microscopic analysis revealed that Sinosauropteryx had a ginger-brown colour overall, with a lighter belly and a striped tail, alternating dark and light bands running down the tail. This colour pattern is similar to some modern mammals and may have provided camouflage in the dappled light of forests. Anchiornis, a small feathered dinosaur related to birds, has been reconstructed in even greater detail. It had a red crest on its head, a grey body with white stripes on its wings and legs, and a mostly black face. The wing stripes were arranged in a specific pattern, white tips on the feathers, similar to patterns in modern birds used for visual signalling. This reconstruction is based on analysis of melanosomes from multiple parts of the body, making it the most completely known colour pattern of any dinosaur. Microraptor, the four-winged dinosaur we discussed earlier, had iridescent black feathers according to melanosome analysis. The iridescence, the rainbow sheen seen in crow feathers or peacock neck feathers, is produced by specific arrangements of melanosomes that cause light interference, creating colours that shift with viewing angle. Iridescent plumage in modern birds is almost always used for display, suggesting that Microraptor used its shimmering feathers to attract mates or signal to rivals. These colour reconstructions reveal that at least some dinosaurs were brightly coloured, at least partially. But what about larger dinosaurs, particularly non-feathered ones? Unfortunately, scales and skin generally don't preserve melanosomes as well as feathers do, so we have less direct evidence for the colours of scaly dinosaurs. However, we can make educated guesses based on modern animals and biological principles. Large modern animals, elephants, rhinoceros, hippos, tend to be relatively drab-coloured, usually grey or brown. This is partly because large animals have less need for camouflage. Few predators can threaten an adult elephant, and partly because in hot climates, dark colours would cause overheating. But there are exceptions. Modern large animals can have bright colours or patterns in specific contexts. Male elephants in musth secrete dark fluid from glands, temporarily darkening their heads. Some rhinos are naturally darker or lighter depending on the mud they wallow in. Giraffes have elaborate spotted patterns, so while we might expect large dinosaurs to have been relatively drab overall, patterns, colour variations, and localised bright colours are certainly possible. For ceratopsians like Triceratops, the frills offer particular opportunities for colour and pattern. Modern animals with horn-like structures or elaborate head appendages often display them colourfully. Think of birds with bright combs or wattles, or mammals with colourful facial markings. The frills of ceratopsians may have been brightly coloured or patterned, used for species recognition and mate attraction. Some ceratopsian frills show evidence of extensive blood vessel networks. In life, these vessels would have supplied blood to the skin covering the frill, allowing colour changes through blood flow control, similar to how chameleons change colour or how human faces flush when embarrassed. A displaying ceratopsian might have been able to engorge its frill with blood, brightening its colour temporarily to enhance its display. Hadrosaurs with their elaborate head crests likely displayed them colourfully as well. The crests were used for producing sounds, but visual signalling was probably also important. Different hadrosaur species had dramatically different crest shapes, almost certainly used for species recognition. This is what a Parasaurolophus looks like, that's a Corythosaurus. Colour patterns would have reinforced these differences, making species recognition even more reliable. Male and female hadrosaurs probably differed in crest size and possibly colour, with males having larger, more elaborate, more brightly coloured crests to attract females. This pattern, sexual dimorphism in display structures, is extremely common in modern animals, from peacocks with their elaborate tails to elk with their large antlers. There's no reason to think dinosaurs were different. Evidence for sexual dimorphism in dinosaurs is tricky to find because we rarely know the sex of fossilised individuals. However, in some species where large numbers of specimens are known, researchers have found statistical evidence for two size classes that might represent males and females. In some theropods, medullary bone, a special calcium-rich bone tissue produced by female birds during egg-laying, has been found, definitively identifying those specimens as female. This opens the possibility of comparing male and female skeletons directly, looking for differences that might represent sexual dimorphism. Pachycephalosaurs, with their thick domed skulls, provide interesting evidence for display behaviour. The domes show different degrees of development, with some individuals having much more elaborate domes than others. Whether this represents sexual dimorphism, males with bigger domes, or simply age variation, older individuals with bigger domes, is debated. But either interpretation suggests the domes were important for visual signalling. the domes may also have been brightly coloured or patterned. Modern animals that use their heads for display, like mandrills with their colourful faces or hornbills with bright head casques, typically have vivid colours drawing attention to the display structures. A Pachycephalosaurus dome might have been painted in bright colours or patterns that accentuated its size and shape. Theropods, especially those with elaborate head crests or other ornamental features, probably displayed these features colourfully. Dilophosaurus had paired crests on its head that were thin and fragile. Clearly not for combat, almost certainly for display. These crests may have been brightly coloured, perhaps with patterns that varied between individuals, allowing recognition and mate assessment. Oviraptorosaurs had elaborate head crests, and in some cases colourful feathers. We know some Oviraptorosaurs had feathers from exceptionally preserved fossils, and melanosome analysis of these feathers reveals colours. Caudipteryx, a small Oviraptorosaur, had white and black banded tail feathers arranged in a fan-like display structure, similar to a turkey's tail. This was clearly a display organ, probably fanned and shaken during courtship displays. Even tyrannosaurs, often portrayed as purely functional killing machines, probably had visual displays. Some tyrannosaurs have rough patches on their skulls that in life probably supported hornlets or other keratinous structures, similar to the horn bumps on giraffe heads. These would have been visually prominent and possibly brightly coloured, used for species recognition and possibly in dominance displays between individuals. The eyes of dinosaurs also tell us about their visual world. Most dinosaurs had relatively large eyes positioned on the sides of their heads, providing wide visual fields useful for detecting predators, but limited binocular vision. Herbivores generally have side-facing eyes giving 360-degree vision, maximum awareness of surroundings at the cost of depth perception. Predatory dinosaurs, particularly advanced theropods, had forward-facing eyes providing substantial binocular overlap. The visual fields of the two eyes overlapped significantly in front, providing stereoscopic depth perception, crucial for judging distances when hunting. Tyrannosaurus rex had forward-facing eyes with better binocular vision than most dinosaurs, approaching that of modern hawks. The size of the eye socket and the sclerotic ring, a ring of bones inside the eye supporting the eyeball, allow estimation of pupil size and visual acuity. Some dinosaurs like Troodon had enormous eyes relative to body size, suggesting they could see well in dim light and possibly hunted at dawn, dusk, or even night. Others had more modest eyes suited for daylight activity. Colour vision is harder to determine from fossils, but if dinosaurs were like modern birds and reptiles, they probably had excellent colour vision, possibly better than mammals. Birds can see ultraviolet wavelengths that humans cannot, adding an entire dimension to their visual world. Some bird feathers that look plain to human eyes have patterns visible only in UV light, used for mate choice and social signalling. Dinosaurs may have had similar capabilities. Those colourful feathers, elaborate crests, and patterned frills might have been even more spectacular than we can imagine, with UV patterns invisible to human eyes but perfectly clear to dinosaur vision. When a Parasaurolophus displayed, tilting its head to show off its crest, other Parasaurolophus might have seen colours and patterns we can never fully visualise. The visual environment of the Mesozoic would have been quite different from today's world. Without flowers, which only evolved in the Cretaceous and didn't become common until late in that period, the landscape would have been dominated by greens and browns, conifer forests, fern understories, cycad patches, all in various shades of green with brown bark and soil. But dinosaurs would have provided splashes of colour in this green world. Feathered theropods in iridescent blacks, rusty browns, or stark white, displaying ceratopsians with colourful frills, hadrosaurs with brightly marked crests, pachycephalosaurs with painted domes. The dinosaurs themselves were the flowers of their ecosystems, using colour for communication and display. Patterns would have been as important as colours. Stripes, spots, bars, eye-like markings, ocelli, countershading, dark above, light below, disruptive patterns that break up body outlines. All of these are used by modern animals for camouflage or signalling, and dinosaurs surely use them too. Juvenile dinosaurs probably had different colours than adults, both for camouflage, babies need to hide more than adults, and for age recognition, preventing adults from treating juveniles as potential mates or rivals. Many modern animals change colour dramatically as they mature, and dinosaurs likely did the same. Seasonal colour changes might have occurred in some species. Modern animals in temperate climates sometimes change colour with seasons: white in winter for snow camouflage, brown in summer for concealment against bare ground. Dinosaurs at high latitudes, experiencing significant seasonal changes, might have had similar adaptations. As you drift deeper towards sleep, imagine the visual spectacle of a late Cretaceous landscape. Not the drab greys and browns of old illustrations, but a world alive with colour. A male Edmontosaurus bellows, its crest flushed red with blood, advertising to females. A Triceratops herd passes, their frills showing individual patterns, some with bold stripes, others with mottled spots, each unique. A feathered tyrannosaur pauses on a ridge, its plumage catching the sunlight, shimmering with iridescence. This was the visual world of dinosaurs, more colourful than we long imagined, more diverse in pattern, more spectacular in display. A world where colour communication was as important as it is for modern birds, where visual signals shaped social interactions, mate choice, and species recognition. A world that we're only now beginning to visualise accurately as fossil preservation and analytical techniques allow us to see what has been invisible for 66 million years. Let the colours of the Mesozoic fade into the darkness behind your eyelids, the bright displays dimming as you sink deeper into rest, the visual world transforming into the darkness of sleep. Dinosaur diseases and injuries. Life was hard in the Mesozoic. As your body settles into deeper relaxation, let's explore a sobering aspect of dinosaur life: the diseases, injuries, and parasites that afflicted these ancient animals. Paleontology isn't just about studying what dinosaurs looked like or how they behaved in health. It's also about understanding their suffering, their wounds, their illnesses. The fossil record preserves evidence of dinosaur pain, revealing that life in the Mesozoic was often brutal and difficult. One of the most common types of evidence for dinosaur injury is healed bone fractures. When a bone breaks and then heals, it leaves telltale signs: calluses where new bone formed around the break, misalignments if the bone didn't heal straight, changes in bone texture at the injury site. Paleontologists have found countless dinosaur bones showing healed fractures, revealing that these animals frequently suffered broken bones during their lives. Theropod hands show particularly high rates of fractures, especially in the fingers. This makes sense. Predatory dinosaurs used their hands to grapple with struggling prey, and bones could easily break during violent encounters. A tyrannosaur trying to hold down a thrashing triceratops might break fingers against horn or frill. A dromaeosaur holding onto a bucking prey animal might suffer similar injuries. Ribs also show frequent fractures, particularly in predatory dinosaurs. These injuries probably resulted from combat with prey, a kick from a large herbivore, a collision during a high-speed chase, or impact against trees or rocks while pursuing prey through forests. The fact that these fractures healed indicates the dinosaurs survived despite these serious injuries, testimony to their resilience. Some fractures were clearly catastrophic, but not immediately fatal. One Allosaurus specimen has a foot with multiple broken bones that healed in a misaligned position, leaving the animal with a permanent limp. Despite this crippling injury, the animal survived for some time afterward. The bone healing indicates months or years of survival post-injury. How did a lame predator feed itself? Perhaps it scavenged. Perhaps it hunted smaller, slower prey than it would have before injury. Or perhaps it was part of a social group that tolerated and even provisioned it. Tail injuries were also common, particularly in hadrosaurs and other ornithischians. Some specimens show tails that were broken, partially healed, then broken again. The same individual suffering multiple tail injuries over its lifetime. Tails were probably grabbed by predators, and a dinosaur might escape by losing part of its tail. Better to lose a tail than your life. Some species might have had weak points in their tails where they could deliberately break when grabbed, similar to how modern lizards can shed their tails. Bite marks on bones provide direct evidence of predator-prey interactions and intraspecific combat. Many Triceratops skulls show gouges and punctures that match the size and spacing of Triceratops horns, proving these animals fought each other, probably competing for mates or territory. The injuries healed, indicating these combats were rarely fatal. They were displays of dominance, not fights to the death. Edmontosaurus tail vertebrae sometimes show bite marks matching Tyrannosaurus rex teeth. These are interesting because some show evidence of healing. The dinosaur was bitten by a tyrannosaur but escaped and survived, at least for a while. This tells us that not every tyrannosaur attack was successful, that prey could and did escape, and that even after being bitten, survival was possible. One remarkable T-Rex specimen, nicknamed Sue, shows extensive pathology. Sue has tooth puncture wounds on her skull that match the size and spacing of Rex teeth. She was bitten in the head by another tyrannosaur, probably during intraspecific combat. The wounds became infected, creating holes in the skull bone that never healed. Sue also has broken ribs, a damaged shoulder, and other injuries. Despite all this trauma, she survived to old age, one of the largest and oldest T-Rex specimens ever found. Her skeleton is a record of a hard life, full of violence and injury, yet ultimately successful. Infections are harder to detect than fractures, but sometimes they leave distinctive marks. Osteomyelitis, bone infection, creates characteristic textures and lesions in bone. Some dinosaur bones show clear evidence of infection, with inflamed pitted bone surfaces indicating bacterial invasion, probably secondary to wounds or fractures. Without antibiotics, such infections would have been agonizing and potentially fatal, though some individuals clearly survived. Arthritis and other degenerative joint diseases affected dinosaurs, particularly long-lived, heavy species. Some sauropod vertebrae show fusion and abnormal bone growth characteristic of osteoarthritis, the wear and tear of supporting enormous weight over decades. Older individuals probably suffered chronic pain from arthritic joints, similar to elderly elephants today. Tumours have been found in dinosaur bones, including both benign and potentially malignant growths. One hadrosaur has been diagnosed with a hemangioma, a benign tumour of blood vessels, in a tailbone. While this wouldn't have been fatal, it might have been painful or interfered with movement. More seriously, some specimens show evidence of bone cancers that might have contributed to their deaths. Parasites are even harder to detect than diseases, but there's some tantalizing evidence. One coprolite, fossilized feces, attributed to a tyrannosaur contains what appear to be parasitic worm eggs, evidence that even apex predators suffered from intestinal parasites. These would have sapped nutrients, caused digestive distress, and generally weakened the host, though probably not enough to be immediately fatal. Some paleontologists have identified possible bite marks from parasitic arthropods on dinosaur skin impressions, though this interpretation is controversial. If accurate, it would indicate that dinosaurs, like modern reptiles and mammals, hosted ectoparasites, ticks, mites, or similar blood-feeding organisms. Birds today are afflicted by numerous parasites, and dinosaurs were likely no different. Tooth wear patterns reveal dietary stress and feeding difficulties. Some hadrosaur teeth show extreme wear, ground down nearly to the root, indicating animals that struggled to find adequate food, or that had dental problems causing abnormal wear. Ceratopsian teeth sometimes show asymmetric wear, suggesting jaw misalignment or injury that caused uneven chewing. One particularly tragic specimen is a young tyrannosaur with a deformed lower jaw. The bones didn't develop normally, leaving the animal unable to close its mouth properly. How this individual fed itself is unclear. It probably starved or was killed by predators unable to defend itself. The specimen serves as a reminder that not all dinosaurs reached adulthood. Many died young from disease, malformation, or predation. Gout, accumulation of uric acid crystals in joints, has been identified in at least one tyrannosaur based on distinctive bone lesions. This metabolic disease, common in modern animals with certain diets or kidney problems, caused painful joint inflammation. The affected tyrannosaur would have suffered chronic pain, affecting its mobility and hunting ability. Some sauropod bones show evidence of osteochondrosis, developmental abnormalities in cartilage and bone growth. These conditions would have caused pain and potentially weakened the skeleton, increasing fracture risk. In extremely large animals like sauropods, any skeletal weakness could be catastrophic given the enormous loads these bones supported. Respiratory diseases are nearly impossible to detect from fossils, but given that dinosaurs breathed air and had lungs, or air sacs, they surely suffered respiratory infections similar to modern animals. Pneumonia, fungal infections, parasitic lung diseases, all would have afflicted dinosaurs but left little or no fossil evidence unless they affected bone. Skin diseases and external injuries rarely fossilize, but on the rare occasions when dinosaur skin is preserved, it sometimes shows scarring or irregular texture that might indicate healed wounds. One hadrosaur skin impression shows what appears to be a healed bite wound, raised scar tissue where the skin was torn and then healed. The cumulative picture from all these pathologies is of animals that suffered regularly from injury and disease but were also remarkably resilient. Many individuals survived serious injuries that would seem catastrophic: broken limbs, infections, predator attacks. They healed, adapted, and continued living, sometimes for years after injury. This resilience was probably necessary for long-term survival. In a world without medical care, without the ability to rest and recover in safety, injured dinosaurs had to continue functioning, finding food, evading predators, migrating with their herds, even while recovering from wounds or illness. Those that couldn't maintain sufficient function died. Those that could survived and potentially passed on genes for resilience to their offspring. The psychological impact of pain and injury is something we can't assess from fossils, but dinosaurs with complex nervous systems certainly felt pain. It's a necessary warning system for avoiding dangerous situations. A dinosaur with a broken leg felt that pain. A dinosaur with an infected wound felt that throbbing, burning sensation. Whether they experienced suffering in the psychological sense that humans do is unknowable, but the physical sensations would have been very real. As you drift further towards sleep, imagine a late Cretaceous ecosystem where not all dinosaurs are healthy specimens for museum displays. A limping Edmontosaurus with an old leg injury carefully navigates difficult terrain. An elderly Triceratops with arthritic joints moves slowly, resting frequently. A young Tyrannosaur has scars from a territorial fight with a rival. An Ankylosaurus has a partially healed bite wound on its side, a reminder of a close encounter with a predator. This was the reality of dinosaur life. Not the pristine, perfect animals of museum mounts, but real animals with wounds, diseases, parasites, and pain. Animals that suffered yet persisted, that adapted to injuries, that lived full lives despite the hardships the Mesozoic world inflicted upon them. Life was hard, but dinosaurs were tough. They endured, they survived, they passed on their genes, and in their bones, preserved for millions of years, they left records of their struggles for paleontologists to read, bringing us closer to understanding their lived experiences. Let the struggles of ancient dinosaurs fade as you sink deeper into restful sleep, grateful that your own minor aches and pains are temporary, that modern medicine exists, that the challenges you face are far less severe than those faced by a dinosaur with a broken leg in a world full of predators. Fossil formation and discovery. How we know what we know. As your consciousness begins to drift, let's explore how we know about dinosaurs at all. The process of fossilization, the work of fossil hunters, and the scientific techniques that transform ancient bones into scientific knowledge. This is a story of preservation and discovery, of patience and luck, of dedicated scientists spending careers piecing together fragments of the past. Fossilization is an extraordinarily rare event. Of all the organisms that have ever lived on Earth, trillions upon trillions of individuals, only a tiny fraction became fossils, and only a fraction of those fossils have been discovered. For a dinosaur to become a fossil requires a specific sequence of unlikely events, which is why the fossil record is so fragmentary. First, the dinosaur must die in a location where its body can be rapidly buried. Most animals that die are quickly scavenged, eaten by predators or scavengers, their bones scattered and broken. For fossilization to occur, burial must happen before significant scavenging and weathering destroy the skeleton. This usually requires death near water, in a river, lake, or ocean, where sediment can quickly cover the body. Imagine a Brachiosaurus dying of old age at the edge of a river during the late Jurassic, 150 million years ago. If it dies on dry land away from water, scavengers will consume the carcass within weeks, and the bones will lie exposed to sun and rain, cracking and fragmenting. Within years, the skeleton will be completely dispersed and destroyed. This dinosaur will leave no fossil record. But if our Brachiosaurus dies in or near the river and is quickly buried by sediment during a flood, the bones are protected from scavengers and weathering. The soft tissues decay, muscle, organs, skin, but the bones remain, embedded in sediment. Over time, mineral-rich groundwater percolates through the sediment. Minerals dissolved in the water, typically calcite, silica, or iron compounds, gradually infiltrate the bone, filling microscopic spaces, chemically replacing organic materials, turning the bone to stone. This process, called permineralization, can take thousands to millions of years. As more sediment accumulates above, the layer containing our Brachiosaurus bones is buried deeper, compressed, and cemented into sedimentary rock. The fossil is now locked in a stone, protected but also hidden. Millions of years pass. The river valley where the Brachiosaurus died is buried under kilometers of subsequent sediment. Tectonic forces might fold and uplift these rocks, creating mountains. Erosion begins wearing away the overlying layers. Eventually, perhaps 150 million years later, erosion exposes the layer containing the fossil. This might happen in a cliff face cut by a modern river, in a badlands where minimal vegetation allows rapid erosion, or in a quarry or construction site. The fossil is now accessible, but this doesn't mean it will be discovered. Fossils exposed at the surface begin weathering immediately, and without discovery and collection, they'll be destroyed by erosion within decades or centuries. This is where fossil hunters come in. Professional paleontologists, trained volunteers, and lucky amateurs who happen to be in the right place search outcrops of the right age rocks, looking for telltale signs, a bone fragment weathering out of a slope, a distinctive colour or texture indicating fossilised material, tooth fragments in the surface gravel. Finding fossils requires a combination of knowledge, experience, and luck. Knowing where to look, being able to recognise fossils when you see them, and being lucky enough to be there when something happens to erode out. When a fossil is discovered, the real work begins. The location is carefully documented: GPS coordinates, stratigraphic position, which layer of rock, photos from multiple angles. Before any excavation, the site is mapped, recording exactly where each bone lies. This context is crucial. A bone without context is just a curiosity. A bone with associated information about what it was found with, in what type of rock, in what position, becomes scientific data. Excavation is painstaking. Small bones might be removed in a single day, but large specimens can require weeks or months of work. Rock surrounding the bone is carefully removed with tools ranging from jackhammers to dental picks, depending on how hard the rock is and how fragile the fossil. Once a bone is exposed, it's often jacketed, wrapped in burlap soaked in plaster, creating a protective shell for transport. Some jackets weigh several tons and require cranes or helicopters to remove. Back at the lab, preparation begins, the slow process of removing rock from fossil, using tools as delicate as needles and brushes, often under microscopes. A single large skeleton might take thousands of hours of preparation over several years before it's ready for study or display. During preparation, smaller fossils are often discovered: teeth from the dinosaur's own mouth that fell out during decay, bones from prey animals in the stomach region, even sometimes eggs or embryos if the specimen is a pregnant female. Once prepared, the scientific study begins. The bones are measured, photographed, drawn, and compared to other specimens. CT scanning has revolutionized paleontology, allowing scientists to see inside fossils without destroying them, revealing internal structures, showing where bones connect, finding pathologies invisible from the surface. Three-dimensional scanning creates digital models that can be shared worldwide, allowing collaboration without shipping fragile fossils. Histology, cutting thin sections of bone to examine under a microscope, reveals growth patterns, age at death, and metabolic information. Microscopic structure shows whether the animal was growing rapidly or slowly, whether it had reached adult size, whether it was experiencing nutritional stress or disease. Geochemical analysis of fossil bones and teeth can reveal diet, habitat, even migration patterns. Isotopes of carbon in tooth enamel reflect what the animal ate. Isotopes of oxygen reflect what it drank and the climate it lived in. These chemical signatures, preserved for millions of years, provide information that bones as shapes alone cannot reveal. Biomechanical analysis uses engineering principles to understand how dinosaurs moved, how strong their bites were, how much weight their limbs could support. Computer simulations can model running, walking, or biting, testing hypotheses about behavior. This is how scientists determined that T-Rex could bite with forces exceeding 50,000 newtons, or that sauropods couldn't have reared up on hind legs as often as depicted because the position would cause dangerous blood pressure issues. All of this work, from the initial moment of fossilization to the final scientific analysis, is necessary to transform a pile of ancient bones into knowledge about dinosaurs, and even then, what we know is fragmentary and uncertain. Most dinosaur species are known from only a handful of specimens, sometimes just a single individual. Many are known only from partial skeletons, a skull, a few vertebrae, some leg bones. Complete skeletons are extraordinarily rare. This fragmentary nature of the fossil record means paleontology is always provisional. New discoveries can overturn old interpretations. The dinosaurs described in textbooks from the 1980s look and behave very differently from how modern science understands them, not because the old scientists were incompetent, but because new fossils have provided new information. Some of the most important discoveries have been made by amateurs. In the late 19th century, Mary Anning in England discovered numerous important fossils, while supporting her family by selling specimens to collectors. In more recent decades, commercial fossil hunters have discovered many significant specimens. Sue the T-Rex was found by commercial hunter Sue Hendrickson, and several important feathered dinosaurs were found by Chinese farmers. The relationship between commercial fossil collecting and scientific research is sometimes contentious. Scientists argue that fossils are scientific resources that should be in public museums, where they can be studied and appreciated by everyone. Commercial collectors argue that without financial incentives, many fossils would never be discovered, and that they often work closely with scientists to ensure important specimens are properly studied. Some of the most productive fossil sites are in remote, inhospitable locations: the Gobi Desert of Mongolia, the Badlands of Argentina, the frozen wastes of Antarctica. Expeditions to these locations require extensive planning, funding, and logistics. Teams might work for weeks in temperatures exceeding 40°C or well below freezing, camping in tents, carrying all their supplies, dealing with dangerous wildlife and difficult terrain. Despite these challenges, the work continues because each new discovery has the potential to revolutionize our understanding. The feathered dinosaurs from China in the 1990s completely changed how we visualize theropods. The discovery of psittacosaurs with preserved skin color patterns in the 2010s revealed that we can know dinosaur colors. The ongoing discoveries of new species, on average, 1 or 2 new dinosaur species are named every month, constantly expand our knowledge. Technology continues to improve our ability to extract information from fossils. Synchrotron radiation can reveal chemical composition at microscopic scales. Confocal microscopy can image structures at resolutions impossible with conventional microscopes. Machine learning algorithms can analyze bone shapes, identifying subtle patterns that human observers miss. Yet for all this technological sophistication, much of paleontology remains remarkably hands-on. Literally. Paleontologists spend hours running their hands over fossil surfaces, feeling for textures that indicate muscle attachment sites, counting tiny grooves that show where nerves or blood vessels ran, using touch as much as sight to understand ancient anatomy. As you drift toward deeper sleep, imagine the journey of a single Triceratops bone, from the living animal 67 million years ago, through death and burial, through fossilization over millions of years, through tectonic uplift and erosion, to exposure in a Badlands cliff, to discovery by a fossil hunter, through excavation and jacketing, to preparation in a lab, to study by scientists, to eventual display in a museum where millions of people will see it and marvel at this connection to deep time. That bone is a time traveler, a messenger from an alien world, carrying information across millions of years. It's a fragment of reality, proof that dinosaurs weren't myths, but actual animals that lived and died in actual places. And the work of paleontologists, painstaking, patient, careful, transforms that fragment into knowledge, into understanding, into the scientific story we've been exploring together. The fossil hunters continue their work, searching ancient rocks for fragments of the past, and you drift with their patient search into the darkness of sleep. Dinosaurs in water and air, beyond the land. Let your breathing deepen as we explore an important clarification about the Mesozoic world. While dinosaurs dominated the land, they did not rule the seas or originally conquer the skies in the way often portrayed. The marine reptiles that swam in Mesozoic oceans and the pterosaurs that soared above were not dinosaurs, though they lived alongside them and are often grouped with them in popular imagination. Understanding what was and wasn't a dinosaur helps us appreciate the true diversity of Mesozoic life. The oceans of the Mesozoic were filled with remarkable reptiles, but none were dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are defined by specific anatomical features, particularly their hip structure and the positioning of their legs directly beneath their bodies. Marine reptiles evolved from different reptilian lineages and never developed the defining characteristics of dinosaurs, despite sometimes resembling them superficially. The ichthyosaurs were among the most successful marine reptiles, existing from the early Triassic until the mid-Cretaceous, a span of nearly 160 million years. They were fish-shaped, streamlined for speed, with dolphin-like bodies, tail flukes, and dorsal fins. Some reached lengths of over 15 meters. They were so well adapted to marine life that they gave birth to live young in the water, rather than coming ashore to lay eggs. We know this because fossils have been found of females preserved in the act of giving birth. Ichthyosaurs had enormous eyes, some of the largest eyes of any animal ever, reaching 30 centimeters in diameter in the largest species. These huge eyes suggest they hunted in deep water or at night, where light levels were low and large eyes provided an advantage. They probably hunted squid and fish, diving to considerable depths in pursuit of prey. Plesiosaurs were another major group of marine reptiles, characterized by their unique body plan. Broad, flat bodies with 4 large paddle-like flippers, and either long necks with small heads, true plesiosaurs, or short necks with large heads, plesiosaurs. They existed from the early Jurassic until the end of the Cretaceous, coexisting with dinosaurs for over 130 million years. The long-necked plesiosaurs like Elasmosaurus, with its extraordinarily long neck containing up to 76 vertebrae, used their necks to position their heads near prey while keeping their large bodies at a distance. They probably fed on fish and squid, using their necks with surprising flexibility to strike at fast-moving prey. The short-necked pliosaurs like Leopleurodon and Kronosaurus were apex predators with massive heads, powerful jaws, and teeth designed for gripping large prey. They hunted other marine reptiles, large fish, and possibly even small dinosaurs that ventured too close to the water's edge. Mosasaurs appeared later in the Cretaceous and quickly became the dominant marine predators. They were actually marine lizards, relatives of modern monitor lizards and snakes, that evolved for aquatic life. The largest mosasaurs, like Mosasaurus hoffmanni, reached lengths of 15-17 meters and had powerful jaws lined with sharp teeth. They were aggressive hunters, and fossil evidence shows they attacked and ate virtually anything they could catch: fish, sharks, other mosasaurs, sea turtles, even plesiosaurs. Some mosasaurs show evidence of high metabolism and possibly even warm-bloodedness, which would have been unusual for reptiles but advantageous for an active marine predator. They had specialized joints in their jaws, allowing the mouth to open extremely wide, similar to snakes, allowing them to swallow large prey whole. None of these marine reptiles were dinosaurs, despite their success and their overlap in time. Dinosaurs, by definition, were terrestrial animals, though some probably waded in shallow water or swam across rivers. But no dinosaurs evolved to become fully marine like ichthyosaurs or mosasaurs. The ocean remained the domain of non-dinosaurian reptiles throughout the Mesozoic. Similarly, the pterosaurs, the flying reptiles that dominated Mesozoic skies, were not dinosaurs, though they were close relatives, both groups being archosaurs. Pterosaurs appeared in the late Triassic, about the same time as the earliest dinosaurs, and existed until the end Cretaceous extinction. Pterosaurs were the first vertebrates to achieve powered flight, preceding birds by tens of millions of years. Their wings were formed by a membrane of skin and muscle stretching from an enormously elongated fourth finger to the body and legs. This wing structure was completely different from bird wings, which use arm bones and feathers, demonstrating that flight evolved independently in these two lineages. Early pterosaurs from the Triassic and Jurassic were mostly small, sparrow to crow-sized, with long tails and teeth. They probably caught insects on the wing or hunted small vertebrates. Dimorphodon from the early Jurassic of England was a small pterosaur with a large head and strong jaws, possibly feeding on fish or small terrestrial prey snatched from the ground. In the Cretaceous, pterosaurs evolved into larger forms and lost their tails, developing the body plan of the advanced pterodactyloid group. Some of these later pterosaurs reached astonishing sizes. Quetzalcoatlus from late Cretaceous North America had a wingspan exceeding 10 meters, as wide as a small airplane, making it the largest flying animal ever. Standing on the ground, it would have been as tall as a giraffe. How such enormous animals could fly is still debated. They must have been extremely lightweight. Their bones were hollow and thin-walled, and they probably had minimal body mass beyond what was necessary for flight. They likely used soaring flight, catching thermals and gliding long distances with minimal flapping, similar to modern albatrosses or condors. Taking off from the ground probably required them to use their powerful forelimbs to vault into the air in a pole vaulting motion. Large pterosaurs like Quetzalcoatlus were probably terrestrial stalkers when not flying, walking on all fours, quadrupedally, using their wings as front legs, hunting small animals on the ground. Trackways attributed to large pterosaurs show quadrupedal locomotion on land, supporting this interpretation. Other pterosaurs became specialized for different lifestyles. Some had elaborate head crests, hollow structures that probably served for display and species recognition, similar to hadrosaur crests. Pteranodon, a large Cretaceous pterosaur from North America, had a long backward-pointing crest that may have helped stabilize its head in flight or served as a rudder. Some pterosaurs had specialized teeth for filter feeding, similar to flamingos, straining small organisms from water. Others had spear-like teeth for catching fish. One group, the Tsungaripterids, had unusual upturned, toothless beaks that they may have used to probe in sediment for shellfish similar to modern avocettes. Pterosaur fossils are rarer than dinosaur fossils because their delicate bones don't fossilize as readily. But in certain locations, the Solnhofen limestone of Germany, the Ahol beds of China, exceptional preservation has captured pterosaurs in exquisite detail, including impressions of their wing membranes, the structure of their crests, and even evidence of their body covering. Yes, pterosaurs had a fuzzy covering of fiber-like structures called pycnofibers covering their bodies. These weren't feathers, they had a different structure, but they served a similar insulating function, suggesting that pterosaurs, like dinosaurs, had elevated metabolisms and needed insulation to retain body heat. This convergent evolution of insulating body coverings in both pterosaurs and dinosaurs suggests that high metabolic rates and thermal regulation were important for the success of Mesozoic archosaurs. However, despite their success, pterosaurs were not dinosaurs. They were a separate lineage that evolved flight independently of birds, which did evolve from dinosaurs. The fact that two groups of archosaurs, pterosaurs and birdline dinosaurs, independently evolved powered flight demonstrates how advantageous flight is, and how evolution can arrive at similar solutions through different paths. Did any actual dinosaurs live in water or fly? Birds, which are dinosaurs, certainly fly, but what about non-avian dinosaurs? Some dinosaurs were semi-aquatic, spending considerable time in water. Spinosaurus, a large theropod from Cretaceous North Africa, has recently been reinterpreted as a semi-aquatic fish-eater based on several lines of evidence. Spinosaurus had a long crocodile-like snout with conical teeth adapted for catching fish. Its nostrils were positioned high on the skull, allowing it to breathe while partially submerged. Its bones were unusually dense, more like those of penguins than typical theropods, suggesting it could control buoyancy and swim underwater. Its tail was deep and flattened, possibly used for propulsion like a crocodile's tail, and its hind legs were short relative to its body, making it clumsy on land but potentially efficient in water. This interpretation of Spinosaurus as a swimming dinosaur is still debated, but if correct, it would make Spinosaurus one of the few dinosaurs that spent significant time in water, hunting fish and perhaps other aquatic prey. It wouldn't have been fully marine like ichthyosaurs, but it might have occupied a semi-aquatic niche similar to modern crocodiles or hippos. Some hadrosaurs show adaptations suggesting they might have been comfortable in water. Deep tails that could have been used for swimming, dense bones for buoyancy control. They probably weren't aquatic, but they may have waded into water to feed on aquatic plants or to escape predators, using their swimming ability when necessary. As for flying non-avian dinosaurs, none are known besides birds and their immediate ancestors. Some small theropods had feathered wings and could probably glide or even fly short distances. These are the transitional forms leading to birds. But large non-avian theropods, sauropods, and ornithischians were firmly terrestrial. their bodies far too heavy for flight even if they had evolved wings. As you drift toward deeper sleep, imagine the complete Mesozoic ecosystem, not just dinosaurs on land but ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs in the oceans, mosasaurs patrolling coastal waters, pterosaurs soaring overhead, and early birds beginning to share the skies. This was a world where reptiles, in various forms, dominated all major habitats, land, sea and air, an achievement no group has matched before or since. The marine reptiles swim through ancient oceans, the pterosaurs glide on prehistoric winds and you drift with them, your consciousness floating like a pterosaur on thermal currents, rising and falling, soaring toward the distant horizon where sleep awaits. Extinction theories. What killed the dinosaurs? Let your mind settle as we approach one of paleontology's most famous mysteries. What killed the dinosaurs? After 165 million years of dominance, the non-avian dinosaurs vanished suddenly, in geological terms, at the end of the Cretaceous period 66 million years ago. This extinction event also eliminated pterosaurs, marine reptiles, ammonites, and many other groups. What could cause such a catastrophe? The answer, we now know, involves both an asteroid impact and massive volcanism, but understanding this took decades of scientific detective work. For much of the 20th century, the dinosaur extinction was mysterious. Geologists knew that dinosaurs were abundant in rocks up to a certain layer, the Cretaceous Paleogene boundary, formerly called Cretaceous Tertiary or KT boundary, and completely absent above it. Below the boundary, dinosaurs everywhere. Above it, none. The extinction was geologically instantaneous, occurring over perhaps a few thousand years, possibly much less. Various theories were proposed. Some suggested gradual climate change. Dinosaurs slowly declined as the world cooled. Others proposed disease, a pandemic that swept through dinosaur populations. Still others suggested competition from early mammals or massive volcanic eruptions. But none of these theories fully explained the pattern of extinction, why some groups disappeared completely while others survived relatively unscathed. The breakthrough came in 1980 when physicist Luis Alvarez and his geologist son Walter published a revolutionary paper proposing that an asteroid impact killed the dinosaurs. Their evidence was a thin layer of clay at the Cretaceous Paleogene boundary containing anomalously high concentrations of iridium, a rare element on Earth's surface but common in asteroids and meteorites. The Alvarez hypothesis proposed that a 10-kilometre asteroid struck Earth, vaporizing on impact and distributing iridium-rich dust worldwide. This dust layer, settling globally, created the iridium spike found at the KPG boundary. The impact would have triggered catastrophic effects: earthquakes, tsunamis, wildfires, and a nuclear winter scenario where dust and debris blocked sunlight for months or years, halting photosynthesis and collapsing food chains. Initially, the hypothesis was controversial. Many paleontologists were skeptical that a single event could cause such widespread extinction. But evidence accumulated. Shocked quartz crystals showing microscopic fractures characteristic of extreme sudden pressure, was found at the boundary layer, consistent with impact. Tektites, glass spherules formed when rock is melted by impact and thrown into the atmosphere, were also found. The smoking gun came in 1991 when geologists identified the impact crater, the Chicxulub crater buried under the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The crater is about 180 kilometers in diameter, consistent with a 10-kilometer asteroid striking at 20-plus kilometers per second. Dating of the crater confirmed it formed exactly at the time of the extinction, 66 million years ago. The Chicxulub impact was catastrophically violent. The asteroid vaporized on contact, along with the rocks it struck, mostly limestone and gypsum-rich sediments. The explosion released energy equivalent to billions of nuclear weapons, roughly 100 trillion tons of TNT. A fireball expanded from the impact site, incinerating everything within hundreds of kilometers. A shockwave radiated outward, flattening forests like matchsticks. The vaporized rock shot into the atmosphere and beyond. Some material achieved escape velocity, leaving Earth entirely, though most fell back. As this material re-entered the atmosphere over the following hours, it heated by friction, creating a global thermal pulse that may have reached 400 degrees Celsius at ground level in some regions. This heat ignited wildfires worldwide. evidence for global burning is found in charcoal layers at the KPG boundary. Massive tsunamis radiated from the impact site. The Gulf of Mexico and Caribbean were devastated by waves potentially kilometers high. Tsunami deposits are found hundreds of kilometers inland in what is now Texas and Mexico. The Atlantic and Pacific also experienced major tsunamis, though diminishing with distance from impact. The ejected material that didn't fall back immediately formed a debris cloud that encircled Earth within hours, blocking sunlight. The impact winter that followed lasted months, possibly years. Without sunlight, photosynthesis ceased. Plants died or went dormant. Herbivores starved. Predators, dependent on herbivores, also starved. The food chains collapsed from the bottom up. The limestone and gypsum rocks at the impact site released enormous quantities of sulfur when vaporized. This sulfur combined with water vapor to create sulfuric acid, which fell as acid rain globally, poisoning freshwater systems and acidifying the ocean surface layer. Marine organisms with calcium carbonate shells, including plankton, died in massive numbers, collapsing marine food webs. The impact also generated nitrogen oxides from atmospheric shock waves. These destroyed the ozone layer, allowing ultraviolet radiation to reach Earth's surface at levels harmful to life. Organisms couldn't escape this combination of stressors: no light, no food, acid rain, UV radiation, extreme temperature swings. The extinction was inevitable, but the asteroid wasn't the only culprit. Around the same time, within a million years, possibly overlapping, massive volcanic eruptions occurred in what is now India, creating the Deccan Trap's flood basalts. These eruptions released enormous volumes of lava, covering an area larger than Texas with basalt up to 2 kilometers thick, and equally enormous volumes of greenhouse gases. The Deccan eruptions would have caused significant climate change even without the asteroid. Warming from CO2, cooling from sulfur aerosols, acid rain, disruption of monsoons. Some scientists argue that the Deccan eruptions were stressing ecosystems when the asteroid delivered the final blow. Others suggest the impact itself may have intensified the volcanism by triggering earthquakes that open new volcanic vents. The current consensus is that both the impact and the volcanism contributed to the extinction, with the impact being the primary killer, the sudden, catastrophic event that pushed already stressed ecosystems past their breaking point. Without the impact, dinosaurs might have weathered the volcanic stress and survived, as they had survived previous volcanic episodes. With the impact, survival became impossible for most large land animals. The extinction was selective. Large animals, dinosaurs, pterosaurs, died out completely. Small animals, many mammals, small reptiles, amphibians, had higher survival rates, probably because they needed less food, could shelter in burrows or underwater, and could enter dormancy during the worst conditions. Marine reptiles died out, but many fish survived, perhaps because freshwater systems were buffered against some of the worst effects, and because fish could survive on detritus when phytoplankton died. Birds survived, though many lineages went extinct, primarily the more specialized groups. The survivors were generally small, ground-dwelling, possibly seed-eating forms that could survive without fresh vegetation. These survivors radiated in the Paleogene, eventually diversifying into the 10,000 plus species of modern birds. Mammals also survived, not all species, but enough lineages to radiate afterward. Mammals were mostly small, nocturnal, generalist omnivores or insectivores before the extinction. After the dinosaurs disappeared, mammals evolved rapidly into larger forms, filling the empty ecological niches. Within 10 million years, there were mammalian herbivores, predators, and omnivores in all size classes from mouse to elephant equivalent. Crocodilians survived, as did turtles, lizards, snakes, and amphibians. These groups were hit hard. Many species went extinct, but enough survived to maintain the lineages. Their survival strategies, semi-aquatic lifestyles for crocodilians, ability to retract into protective shells for turtles, small size and low metabolic demands for many lizards, apparently provided sufficient buffering against extinction conditions. Plants had high extinction rates, but sufficient survival to recover relatively quickly. Seeds, spores, and underground structures, roots, rhizomes, tubers, allowed plants to persist through the impact winter. When light returned, plants sprouted from these surviving propagules. Ferns were particularly successful early in the recovery, The fern spike in fossil pollen records shows ferns initially dominating before other plants recovered. The recovery from the extinction took millions of years. For perhaps the first 100,000, 500,000 years, ecosystems were simple, with low diversity and productivity. Food webs were short, primary producers, a few herbivores, a few predators. As time passed, diversity gradually increased. New species evolved to fill empty niches. Complex ecosystems rebuilt themselves, but the Mesozoic world was gone forever. The age of dinosaurs had ended. The Cenozoic Era, the age of mammals, had begun. Earth's fauna was completely restructured. The dominant land animals changed from reptiles to mammals. The dominant large herbivores changed from ceratopsians and hadrosaurs to ungulates. The dominant predators changed from tyrannosaurs to carnivorans. As you drift deeper towards sleep, imagine the last days of the Cretaceous, 66 million years ago. Dinosaurs going about their lives unaware of the asteroid approaching from space. A triceratops herd grazing. A tyrannosaurus hunting. An edmontosaurus calling to its mates. Pterosaurs soaring overhead. Life continuing as it had for millions of years. Then the sky lights up. A brilliant fireball streaks across the heavens brighter than 1,000 suns. Impact. The world ends. The age of dinosaurs concludes in fire and darkness, and from the ashes, slowly, painfully, a new world emerges. Our world, the world of mammals, the world that would eventually produce humans who would discover fossils, decipher the past, and tell the story of the dinosaurs who came before. The ancient catastrophe echoes through time, and you drift with its fading reverberations into the quiet darkness of sleep. Survivors and descendants. Birds are dinosaurs. Let your body relax completely as we explore one of paleontology's most remarkable revelations. Dinosaurs didn't go entirely extinct 66 million years ago. One lineage survived the catastrophe and thrives today, with more than 10,000 species distributed across every continent. These survivors are birds, not descendants of dinosaurs, but actually dinosaurs themselves, members of the theropod lineage that includes Tyrannosaurus and Velociraptor. Every time you see a bird, you're seeing a living dinosaur. The connection between birds and dinosaurs wasn't always obvious. For most of history, birds were classified as a completely separate group from reptiles, with unclear evolutionary origins. But starting in the 1860s with the discovery of Archaeopteryx, and accelerating dramatically in the 1990s with discoveries of feathered dinosaurs in China, the evidence became overwhelming that birds evolved from small theropod dinosaurs. Archaeopteryx, discovered in Germany in 1861, was a transitional fossil showing a clear mix of reptilian and avian features. It had feathers and wings like a bird. It had a wishbone, fused clavicles like a bird. But it also had teeth, unlike modern birds. It had a long, bony tail, unlike modern birds. It had clawed fingers on its wings, unlike most modern birds, and its skeletal structure was fundamentally similar to small theropod dinosaurs. For over a century, Archaeopteryx stood alone as evidence of the dinosaur-bird connection. But starting in the 1990s, Chinese paleontologists began discovering numerous feathered dinosaurs in the Liaoning province. These fossils showed that feathers weren't unique to birds, but were widespread among theropods. Dinosaurs like Sinosauropteryx, Caudipteryx, and Microraptor had feathers ranging from simple filaments to complex flight feathers. These discoveries revealed that feathers evolved in dinosaurs long before flight. Simple feathers probably first evolved for insulation, similar to fur in mammals. More complex feathers then evolved for display, species recognition, mate attraction, intimidation of rivals. Only later did some lineages begin using feathers for flight, first through gliding, eventually through powered flight. The lineage leading to birds can be traced through a series of increasingly bird-like theropods. The dromaeosaurs, the raptors, are close relatives of birds, sharing features like a specialized wrist bone that allowed the hand to fold against the body, similar to how birds fold their wings. The troodontids, with their large brains and forward-facing eyes, are another group closely related to birds. The oviraptorosaurs, with their short snouts and toothless beaks, show convergence toward bird-like features. Birds themselves, the avian lineage, evolved from this theropod family tree sometime in the Jurassic, probably around 150–160 million years ago. The exact ancestry is still debated, but birds are definitively nested within the theropod dinosaurs. making them as much dinosaurs as Tyrannosaurus or Velociraptor. They're not descended from dinosaurs but are a surviving dinosaur lineage. What makes something a bird rather than a non-avian dinosaur? The boundary is actually somewhat arbitrary, a matter of definition rather than a clear biological distinction. Birds are typically defined as having certain features: feathers, wings adapted for flight, even if secondarily flightless, a keeled sternum, breastbone for flight muscle attachment, fused tail, vertebrae forming a pygostyle, and other skeletal modifications related to flight. But these features appeared gradually over millions of years. Some non-avian dinosaurs had feathers, some had wings, some had fused tail bones. The transition from non-avian dinosaur to bird was gradual, not sudden, making it difficult to draw a precise line. Modern paleontologists define birds as the group including modern birds, and everything more closely related to them than to other dinosaurs, a definition that includes Archaeopteryx and numerous other Mesozoic forms. During the Cretaceous, birds diversified alongside non-avian dinosaurs. Early Cretaceous birds like Confuciusornis had features intermediate between Archaeopteryx and modern birds. They had lost their teeth but still retained clawed fingers on their wings. Late Cretaceous birds like Hesperornis were specialized for aquatic life, flightless swimming birds with reduced wings and powerful legs for propulsion underwater. The end Cretaceous extinction devastated bird diversity. Many lineages went extinct, particularly the more specialized forms. But some survived, primarily small, ground-dwelling, generalist forms that could eat seeds and survive without fresh vegetation. These survivors radiated in the Paleogene, diversifying rapidly into the ecological niches left empty by extinct pterosaurs and non-avian dinosaurs. Modern bird diversity is extraordinary. With over 10,000 species, birds are the most diverse group of land vertebrates after fish. They occupy every conceivable niche from oceanic wanderers, albatrosses, to terrestrial runners, ostriches, from nocturnal predators, owls, to nectar feeders, hummingbirds, from underwater pursuers, penguins, to aerial acrobats, swifts. All of this diversity evolved from dinosaurs. When a hummingbird hovers, visiting flowers, its wings beating 50+ times per second, it's using structures that evolved from the grasping arms of theropod dinosaurs. When an owl hunts at night, its forward-facing eyes providing binocular vision. It's using an adaptation that originated in predatory theropods. When a songbird produces complex vocalizations, it's using a vocal organ, the syrinx, that evolved somewhere in the dinosaur-to-bird transition. Birds retain many dinosaurian features. Their scales, visible on their legs and feet, are essentially dinosaur scales. Their egg-laying, all birds lay hard-shelled eggs, is a dinosaur characteristic. Their nesting behavior, with one or both parents incubating eggs, mirrors what we know about Oviraptorosaur nesting. Their high metabolisms and constant body temperature are traits they probably inherited from theropod dinosaurs. Some birds have even re-evolved features that resemble their dinosaurian ancestors. The Hoatzin, a South American bird, has claws on its wings as juveniles, using them to climb through vegetation, similar to how Archaeopteryx used its wing claws. Some birds, like cassowaries and secretary birds, have evolved to be formidable predators despite their avian heritage, filling ecological roles similar to small non-avian theropods. The cognitive abilities of birds, particularly corvids, crows and ravens, and parrots, rival those of many mammals. They use tools, solve complex problems, recognize individual humans, remember hiding places for food, and show evidence of planning for the future. This intelligence probably reflects their dinosaurian heritage. Dinosaurs like Troodon had relatively large brains, and the theropod lineage leading to birds may have been evolving toward greater intelligence for tens of millions of years before birds appeared. The social behaviors of birds, flocking, cooperative breeding, complex vocalizations, territorial displays, also likely have dinosaurian roots. We know from fossils that many dinosaurs were social, lived in groups, possibly cooperated in various ways. Birds inherited this social tendency and elaborated on it, creating some of the most complex social systems in the animal kingdom. Understanding that birds are dinosaurs changes how we think about both groups. Dinosaurs aren't extinct. They're all around us, singing in the trees, swimming in ponds, soaring overhead. The age of dinosaurs didn't end 66 million years ago, it continues today. The non-avian dinosaurs went extinct, but dinosaurs as a group persist, thriving, more diverse now than at any point in the Mesozoic. This also means that studying modern birds provides insights into dinosaur biology. How birds grow, how they behave, how their respiratory systems work, how they reproduce. All of this informs our understanding of their dinosaurian relatives. Birds are living laboratories for dinosaur biology, allowing us to study aspects of dinosaur physiology and behaviour that fossils alone cannot reveal. As you drift toward the edge of sleep, imagine the evolutionary journey from dinosaurs to birds, from Archaeopteryx in Jurassic Forest to modern birds in every habitat worldwide. Imagine a crow perching outside your window, its dinosaurian ancestry written in every feature, its scales, its eggs, its behaviour. This bird is a time traveller carrying 150 million years of evolution in its body, a living connection to the Mesozoic, a reminder that the age of dinosaurs never truly ended. The ancient lineage continues, and you drift with it through evolutionary time, through deep history, toward the present moment and beyond, into the darkness where consciousness dissolves into sleep. Record breakers, the biggest, smallest, and strangest. As your consciousness grows quieter, let's explore the extremes of the dinosaur world. The record breakers, the outliers, the dinosaurs that pushed biological limits in various directions. These are the animals that make us marvel at evolution's creativity and nature's capacity to produce the extraordinary from the ordinary. The largest. The title of largest dinosaur is hotly contested and changes as new discoveries are made. Currently, Argentinosaurus from late Cretaceous Argentina is often cited as the largest, with estimates of 30-35 meters in length and 60-100 tons in weight. But Argentinosaurus is known from only fragmentary remains, making precise size estimates difficult. Other contenders include Patagotitan, also from Argentina, estimated at 37 meters long and 69 tons based on more complete remains. Dreadnoughtus, another Argentine giant, is known from more complete skeletons and provides better data, about 26 meters long and 59 tons, though it wasn't fully grown when it died, suggesting adults might have been even larger. The largest complete skeleton belongs to Brachiosaurus, though even this is a composite from multiple individuals. A truly complete giant sauropod skeleton would be an astonishing find but remains elusive. These animals were so large that complete preservation and subsequent discovery are extraordinarily unlikely. The longest. While Argentinosaurus might be the heaviest, Diplodocus holds records for length. Some specimens reach 26-27 meters, with most of that length in the neck and especially the tail. The tail alone could exceed 14 meters, a whip-like structure with 80-plus vertebrae that could be used for communication, display, or possibly defense. The tallest, Sauroposeidon, a brachiosaur from early Cretaceous North America, could raise its head to heights of 17-18 meters when it stretched its neck vertically, as tall as a 6-story building. This allowed it to browse on vegetation no other herbivore could reach, reducing competition for food. The smallest non-avian dinosaurs were tiny theropods. Microraptor, already mentioned for its forewings, was only about 77 centimeters long and weighed approximately 1 kilogram, crow-sized. But even smaller was Parvis hirsa, a tiny Alvarez saurid from late Cretaceous Mongolia, estimated at only 39 centimeters long and weighing perhaps 150 grams, about the size of a modern robin. These tiny dinosaurs occupied ecological niches similar to modern small birds, probably eating insects and other small prey. Their small size was advantageous, requiring less food, able to hide easily, capable of rapid reproduction. If we include birds, the smallest dinosaur is the bee hummingbird, weighing only 1.62 grams, small enough to be mistaken for an insect. The smartest. Intelligence is difficult to measure in extinct animals, but brain-to-body size ratios provide clues. Troodon, a small theropod from late Cretaceous North America, had the highest brain-to-body ratio of any non-avian dinosaur, comparable to modern birds like emus. Its large brain, large eyes, grasping hands, and possible pack-hunting behaviour suggest considerable cognitive capacity. The dumbest. This is perhaps unfair. Dumb implies comparison to human intelligence, which isn't relevant for dinosaurs. but Stegosaurus had one of the smallest brain-to-body ratios of any dinosaur, a walnut-sized brain in a multi-ton body. However, this doesn't mean Stegosaurus was non-functional. It successfully survived for millions of years, found food, avoided predators, and reproduced. Its brain was sufficient for its needs, even if it wasn't particularly large. The strangest. Many dinosaurs could claim this title, but Therizinosaurus from late Cretaceous Mongolia is a strong contender. This was a theropod, a member of the primarily carnivorous group, but it was herbivorous. It had a pot-bellied body, long neck, small head, and most remarkably claws on its hands exceeding 50 centimeters in length, the longest claws of any animal ever. What Therizinosaurus used these enormous claws for is debated. They seem impractical for combat, too long and delicate. They may have been used to pull down branches for feeding, similar to how modern ground sloths, now extinct, use their claws. Or they may have been primarily for display, with their size and appearance intimidating rivals or attracting mates. The fastest. Determining dinosaur running speeds is challenging, but biomechanical analysis and trackway studies provide estimates. Small, lightly built theropods were probably the fastest. Struthiomimus and other ornithomimids, ostrich dinosaurs, had long legs relative to body size, indicating they were built for speed, possibly reaching 50-80 km/h, as fast as modern ostriches. Larger theropods were slower. T-Rex probably couldn't run faster than about 27 to 40 km/h according to most biomechanical models, fast enough to catch most large prey but not exactly sprinting. The massive leg muscles required to move a 7-ton body at high speed would have been enormous, perhaps too large to fit within the leg structure. Some scientists argue T-Rex was a fast walker rather than a runner, capable of sustained pursuit at moderate speeds rather than explosive sprints. The most heavily armoured, Ankylosaurus holds this title with its comprehensive body armour, thick bony plates covering its entire back, sides and head, interspersed with spikes and knobs. Even its eyelids had bony shutters. Combined with its massive tail club, Ankylosaurus was essentially invulnerable to predators once fully grown. A tyrannosaur attempting to attack an adult Ankylosaurus would find no vulnerable points and risked severe injury from the tail club. The longest neck. Mamenchisaurus from Jurassic China had a neck measuring up to 15 meters, about half its total body length. This extraordinarily long neck contained up to 19 cervical vertebrae, neck bones, far more than most dinosaurs. The neck was probably held horizontally, sweeping side to side to feed on vegetation without moving the body, maximizing feeding efficiency. The longest tail, Diplodocus, already mentioned for its overall length, had the longest tail of any dinosaur, with some specimens' tails exceeding 14 meters. The tail was highly flexible with numerous small vertebrae near the tip, possibly allowing it to be cracked like a whip at supersonic speeds. The most teeth. Hadrosaurs had the most complex dental arrangements of any dinosaur. Edmontosaurus had dental batteries containing up to 1,000 teeth, multiple rows of tightly packed teeth that formed grinding surfaces for processing tough vegetation. As teeth wore down, they were replaced by new teeth growing from below, maintaining continuous chewing ability throughout life. The longest claws. As mentioned, Therizinosaurus had claws exceeding 50 centimeters, about half a meter of claw. But these weren't the only impressive claws. Deinocheirus, another strange theropod from Mongolia, had arms measuring 2.4 meters long with 20 centimeter claws. For years, only these arms were known, leading to speculation about a giant predator. When more complete specimens were found, Deinocheirus turned out to be a weird omnivore with a sail on its back and a duck-like bill. The strongest bite. Tyrannosaurus rex holds this record definitively. Biomechanical analysis and comparisons with modern animals suggest T-Rex could bite with forces of 57,000 newtons, stronger than any other land animal measured. This bite force, combined with massive teeth and robust skull construction, allowed T-Rex to crush bone, accessing nutrients other predators couldn't reach. The longest horns. Triceratops had impressive brow horns, but the longest belonged to certain chasmosaurians like Coelurocratops, whose brow horns exceeded 1.2 meters in length. These enormous horns were probably primarily for display and intraspecific combat, though they would also be formidable weapons against predators. The biggest carnivore, This title is contested between several large theropods. Spinosaurus may have been the longest at 15-18 meters, but much of that length was tail and neck. Giganotosaurus and Carcharodontosaurus from Cretaceous South America and Africa respectively reached comparable sizes to T-Rex, possibly exceeding it slightly. Absolute size is difficult to determine from fragmentary fossils, and the difference between these giants is small enough that biggest carnivore depends partly on which measurements you prioritize. The weirdest. Beyond Therizinosaurus, several other dinosaurs deserve mention for sheer oddity. Deinocheirus had a hump on its back, a duck-like bill and arms longer than a human is tall. Spinosaurus was possibly semi-aquatic with a crocodile-like snout and a sail on its back. Yiqi, a small Jurassic dinosaur from China, had bat-like membranous wings supported by elongated fingers, plus an entirely unique bone structure, representing a flight experiment that didn't lead anywhere evolutionarily. Nigersaurus from Cretaceous Africa had the widest mouth of any dinosaur, broader than its skull is deep, with teeth arranged in batteries along the jaw's front edge, creating a vacuum cleaner-like structure for grazing on ground-level vegetation. Its skull was so delicate and filled with air spaces that it weighed only a few kilograms, despite being 9 meters long overall. The oldest definitive dinosaurs date to approximately 230 million years ago in the late Triassic. Herrerasaurus, Eoraptor, and Staurikosaurus from Argentina are among the earliest known. But determining the first dinosaur is difficult because the transition from non-dinosaurian archosaurs to dinosaurs was gradual, and fossils from the critical time period are rare. The last non-avian dinosaurs lived 66 million years ago in the latest Cretaceous. Triceratops, Tyrannosaurus rex, Edmontosaurus, and Ankylosaurus were among the final genera, living right up to the extinction boundary. There's no evidence that dinosaurs were declining before the asteroid impact. They remained diverse and successful until the catastrophe struck. The most common. Determining which dinosaur was most abundant is difficult, but some species are found in enormous bone beds suggesting huge populations. Centrosaurus, a ceratopsian from late Cretaceous Canada, has been found in bone beds containing thousands of individuals that apparently died together, possibly during river crossing or other mass mortality event. These bone beds suggest herds numbering in tens of thousands. The rarest. Many dinosaur species are known from only a single specimen, sometimes just a few bones. Dracorex, a pachycephalosaur from Montana, is known from one partial skull. Whether it represents a distinct species, a juvenile of another species, or merely an individual variation remains debated. The rarest fossils are those preserved in extraordinary conditions showing soft tissues, colours, or behaviours. These are invaluable scientifically but represent tiny fractions of 1% of all fossils. The most specialised. Many dinosaurs evolved extreme specialisations. Limosaurus, a small theropod from Jurassic China, was toothless and probably herbivorous despite being a theropod. Nothronicus, a therizinosaur from Cretaceous North America, had a highly specialised digestive system for processing plant material despite its carnivorous ancestry. Deinocheirus combined features from multiple dinosaur groups in bizarre combinations. The most widespread. Certain dinosaur genera had enormous geographic ranges. Allosaurus fossils have been found across western North America and Portugal, suggesting transatlantic distribution during the late Jurassic when the Atlantic was narrower. Iguanodon, a large ornithopod, has been found across Europe and North Africa. Some tyrannosaur relatives lived across Asia and North America, enabled by land bridges that periodically connected these continents. As you drift deeper into relaxation, imagine the diversity these extremes represent. From tiny insect eaters to 70-ton herbivores, from slow, heavily armoured tanks to swift pursuit predators, from intelligent pack hunters to small-brained but successful browsers, dinosaurs explored every conceivable variation on the reptilian theme. They pushed the limits of size, specialisation and adaptation, creating a bestiary so diverse that 165 million years wasn't enough to exhaust the possibilities. These record breakers weren't freaks or aberrations, but successful animals that dominated their ecosystems, sometimes for millions of years. The extremes weren't failures, but successes, demonstrations that evolution can produce functional animals across an astonishing range of body plans and sizes. The parade of extremes continues through your imagination. The giants, the tiny, the weird, the specialized. and you drift with them, your consciousness wandering through this diversity, marveling at evolution's creativity, slowly sinking toward the simplicity of sleep, reconstructing lost worlds, paleoenvironments and ancient ecosystems. Let your breathing deepen as we explore how paleontologists reconstruct not just individual dinosaurs, but entire ancient ecosystems, the plants, climate, geography, and ecological relationships that defined the worlds dinosaurs inhabited. This is paleoenvironmental reconstruction, the science of bringing vanished worlds back to life through careful analysis of fossils and geology. When paleontologists discover dinosaur fossils, they're not just finding bones, they're finding time capsules, sedimentary deposits that preserve information about ancient environments. The type of rock, sandstone, mudstone, limestone, indicates what kind of environment existed: river channel, floodplain, lake, ocean margin. The fossils found with dinosaurs, plants, invertebrates, other animals, reveal the community structure and ecological relationships. Consider the Morrison Formation of Western North America, deposited during the late Jurassic about 150 million years ago. This rock formation extends across multiple states and contains some of the most famous dinosaur fossils: Allosaurus, Stegosaurus, Diplodocus, Brachiosaurus, and many others. But what was this environment like? The rocks tell us the Morrison was a broad floodplain system, a network of meandering rivers, oxbow lakes, and seasonal wetlands. The climate was semi-arid with distinct wet and dry seasons, as indicated by the presence of calcrete, calcium carbonate deposits that form in seasonally dry soils. The vegetation, known from fossilized wood and pollen, included conifers, cycads, ferns, and ginkgos, no flowering plants, which hadn't evolved yet. The dinosaur fossils show a diverse community. Large sauropods, Diplodocus, Apatosaurus, Brachiosaurus, Camarasaurus, dominated the herbivore biomass. Smaller ornithischians like Stegosaurus and Camptosaurus filled mid-sized herbivore niches. The apex predator was Allosaurus, with smaller theropods like Ceratosaurus and Torvosaurus also present. Tiny dinosaurs like Ornitholestes hunted small prey, but dinosaurs weren't alone. Crocodilians lived in the rivers and lakes, turtles basked on logs, pterosaurs soared overhead, genera like Harpactognathus with wingspans of 2-3 meters. Early mammals scurried through undergrowth, mostly small insectivores. Fish swam in the waterways. Countless invertebrates, insects, spiders, freshwater mollusks formed the base of food webs. Plant fossils provide crucial information about climate and seasonality. Growth rings in fossil wood indicate seasonal growth patterns. Wet seasons when trees grew rapidly, dry seasons when growth slowed or stopped. The types of plants present indicate temperature ranges. Tropical plants require warmth year-round, while temperate plants tolerate cold seasons. Soil features preserved in rocks reveal additional climate information. Caliche or calcrete layers indicate seasonal drying. Gley horizons, waterlogged soils, indicate seasonal flooding. Peat deposits indicate persistent wetlands. Coal layers indicate long-term swamps. By reading these soil features, geologists reconstruct moisture patterns and water table levels. Oxygen isotope ratios in fossil shells and teeth reveal temperature and precipitation. Different isotopes of oxygen are incorporated into shells and teeth in temperature-dependent ratios. By measuring these ratios, scientists can estimate the temperature of ancient waters or the temperature range an animal experienced. This technique has revealed, for example, that sauropods didn't migrate seasonally to track temperature. They stayed in their home ranges year-round, tolerating seasonal temperature variations. Carbon isotope ratios reveal diet. Plants use different photosynthetic pathways, C3, C4, or CAM, that incorporate carbon isotopes differently. By analysing carbon isotopes in fossil teeth, scientists determine what types of plants herbivores ate. This has revealed, for instance, that hadrosaurs primarily ate C3 plants, trees and shrubs, rather than C4 plants. Grasses weren't common until after dinosaurs went extinct. Trackways, fossilised footprints, provide information about behaviour that bones alone cannot reveal. A trackway showing multiple individuals moving together indicates herding behaviour. Trackways of different-sized individuals with similar foot shapes indicate age-mixed groups, suggesting parental care or social structure. Trackways showing predator and prey prints in proximity suggest hunting events, though interpreting behavior from tracks requires caution. The Hell Creek Formation of Montana and the Dakotas preserves the latest Cretaceous ecosystem, 67 to 66 million years ago, just before the extinction. This environment was a coastal floodplain near the Western Interior Seaway, a shallow sea that split North America. The climate was warm-temperate with seasonal variation, and vegetation included conifers, flowering plants, by now common and diverse, ferns, and palms. The Hell Creek fauna was diverse. Triceratops was the most common large herbivore, with herds roaming the landscape. Edmontosaurus, a large hadrosaur, was also abundant. Ankylosaurus provided the armored herbivore niche. Pachycephalosaurs like Pachycephalosaurus and Stygimoloch, possibly growth stages of the same species, were present. The apex predator was Tyrannosaurus rex, joined by smaller predators like Troodon and dromaeosaurs. Birds were present and diverse, both archaic toothed forms and more modern toothless forms. Pterosaurs still existed but were rare by this time, mostly represented by giant ajdarchids like Quetzalcoatlus. Crocodilians, turtles, lizards, and champsosaurs, crocodile-like reptiles now extinct, inhabited aquatic environments. Mammals were diverse but still mostly small, including metatherians, relatives of marsupials, eutherians, relatives of placentals, and multituberculates. By examining fossilized pollen and plant remains, paleobotanists have reconstructed Hell Creek vegetation in detail. Lowland areas near water had diverse forests with sycamores, laurels, and magnolias. Upland areas had conifer forests. Open areas had ferns and early grasses. Flowering plants had diversified extensively by the late Cretaceous, creating landscapes that would seem relatively familiar to modern eyes, far more so than Jurassic landscapes dominated by gymnosperms. Trace fossils, coprolites, fossilized feces, bite marks on bones, burrows, and gastroliths, stomach stones, provide direct evidence of behavior and ecology. Coprolites reveal what animals ate. One famous tyrannosaur coprolite contains crushed bone fragments, proving bone eating. Bite marks show feeding behavior and predator-prey relationships. Burrows show where animals sheltered. Gastroliths show how some dinosaurs processed food. The distribution of fossils across ancient landscapes reveals habitat preferences. Some dinosaurs are found only in lowland river channels, suggesting they preferred well-watered areas. Others are found in upland deposits, suggesting they tolerated drier conditions. Some are found in coastal deposits, others only inland. These distribution patterns reveal ecological partitioning, different species occupying different habitats, reducing competition. Taphonomy, the study of what happens to organisms after death and how fossils form, is crucial for interpreting ancient ecosystems. Not all organisms fossilize equally. Animals living near water fossilize more readily than those in uplands. Large bones preserve better than small ones. Hard tissues preserve better than soft ones. These biases mean the fossil record doesn't perfectly represent ancient ecosystems. We must correct for preservation biases when reconstructing communities. Some deposits preserve extraordinary information through exceptional fossilization. The Jehol biota of early Cretaceous China preserved not just bones but feathers, skin, stomach contents, and even melanosomes, pigment structures. These fossils reveal colors, diets, and behaviors that normal fossils cannot show. Similar exceptional preservation occurs in other localities: the Solnhofen limestone of Germany, the Ixian Formation of China, the Crato Formation of Brazil. Paleo-environmental reconstruction is constantly improving as new techniques develop. Climate models can now simulate ancient climates using continental positions, atmospheric composition, and ocean circulation patterns reconstructed from geology. These models predict temperature and precipitation patterns that can be tested against fossil distributions. The match between model predictions and fossil evidence validates both approaches. As your mind drifts, imagine paleontologists as time travelers using rocks and fossils as their time machines. They can't visit the past directly, but through careful analysis of evidence preserved in stone, they reconstruct vanished worlds with surprising accuracy. They can tell you what the temperature was, what plants grew, what animals lived where, how they interacted. They can recreate ecosystems from 66 or 150 or 200 million years ago with enough detail that artists can paint accurate scenes. and scientists can model ecological relationships. These lost worlds aren't fantasy, but reconstructed reality, scientific best estimates based on physical evidence. The Morrison Formation wasn't a generic dinosaur land, but a specific ecosystem with particular climate, vegetation, and animal communities. Hell Creek wasn't just where dinosaurs went extinct, but a rich coastal floodplain ecosystem with complex food webs and ecological relationships. Understanding these ancient ecosystems helps us understand dinosaurs not as isolated creatures, but as components of communities, shaped by and shaping their environments, interacting with countless other species, adapted to specific climates and vegetation types. Dinosaurs don't exist in a vacuum. They existed in complete functional ecosystems as complex as any today. The ancient ecosystems fade into deep time, and you drift with them, through vanished forests and across extinct rivers, beneath skies filled with pterosaurs, through a world that existed long before humans but that we can still, through science, partially resurrect and understand. Cultural impact: dinosaurs in human imagination. As you relax even more deeply, let's take a brief detour from dinosaur biology to explore their cultural impact. Dinosaurs have captured human imagination since their discovery in the 19th century, becoming icons of popular culture, symbols of extinction, and inspirations for countless books, films, and scientific careers. Understanding this cultural dimension helps us appreciate why dinosaurs matter beyond their scientific interest. The first dinosaur fossils to be scientifically described were teeth and bones discovered in England in the 1820s. In 1824, William Buckland described Megalosaurus, making it the first dinosaur to receive a scientific name. In 1825, Gideon Mantell described Iguanodon based on teeth that resembled iguana teeth but were much larger. These early descriptions were based on fragmentary remains, and the scientist had difficulty imagining what complete animals would look like. The word dinosaur wasn't coined until 1842, when Richard Owen recognized that Megalosaurus, Iguanodon, and Hylaeosaurus, another early discovery, shared distinctive features and represented a new group of reptiles. He named them Dinosauria, meaning terrible lizards, though as we've discussed, they weren't lizards at all. Owen's work established dinosaurs as a distinct group worthy of study. The first attempts to reconstruct complete dinosaurs produced images very different from modern understanding. In 1854, sculptor Benjamin Waterhouse Hawkins created life-sized models of dinosaurs for the Crystal Palace in London. These models depicted dinosaurs as lumbering reptilian quadrupeds, essentially giant lizards. The Iguanodon model had a spike on its nose, actually a thumb spike, and the proportions were entirely wrong. But these models were based on the best available evidence at the time and represented serious scientific attempts at reconstruction. The late 19th century saw intense competition between American paleontologists, particularly Edward Drinker Cope and Othniel Charles Marsh, who competed to discover and name new dinosaur species. This Bone Wars period resulted in the discovery of many famous dinosaurs: Allosaurus, Stegosaurus, Triceratops, Diplodocus, but also in rushed, sometimes careless work as each scientist tried to outdo the other. Despite the rivalry's negative aspects, it established dinosaur paleontology in North America and captured public attention. In the early 20th century, dinosaurs entered popular culture through novels, early films, and museum displays. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's 1912 novel, The Lost World, featured a plateau where dinosaurs survived, inspiring numerous later Lost World stories. The 1925 film adaptation of The Lost World featured stop-motion dinosaurs by Willis O'Brien, establishing techniques that would be used for decades. Museum displays brought dinosaurs to public attention. The American Museum of Natural History in New York assembled spectacular mounted skeletons of Tyrannosaurus rex, Apatosaurus, and other dinosaurs, creating iconic images that defined how the public visualized these animals. These displays were both scientifically informative and visually impressive, making museums important institutions for dinosaur education. The 1933 film King Kong featured dinosaurs, along with the giant ape, and used stop-motion animation to bring them to life. While scientifically inaccurate, the film's dinosaurs were impressive for their time and influenced public perception of dinosaurs as dangerous, primitive creatures from a bygone era. This dinosaurs as monsters theme would persist in popular culture for decades. The mid-20th century saw dinosaurs portrayed as slow, stupid, cold-blooded creatures doomed to extinction by their own inadequacy. This view reflected scientific understanding of the time but also cultural attitudes. Dinosaurs were seen as evolutionary failures, contrasted with mammals as evolutionary successes. This narrative fit Cold War-era cultural themes about progress and adaptation. The dinosaur renaissance of the 1960s-1970s, led by paleontologist John Ostrom and popularized by Robert Bakker, revolutionized scientific and public understanding of dinosaurs. Ostrom's work on Deinonychus demonstrated that some dinosaurs were active, agile predators, not sluggish lizards. Bakker argued that dinosaurs were warm-blooded and suggested they were more like birds and mammals than like modern reptiles in their physiology and behavior. This new view of dinosaurs as active, intelligent, possibly warm-blooded animals gradually permeated popular culture, though the transition took decades. The 1993 film Jurassic Park, based on Michael Crichton's novel and directed by Steven Spielberg, presented dinosaurs as dynamic, dangerous, intelligent animals using cutting-edge computer graphics and animatronics. The film's depictions, while not entirely accurate scientifically, represented the modern understanding far better than earlier films and inspired a generation of future paleontologists. Jurassic Park also introduced the public to the concept of extracting dinosaur DNA from amber-preserved mosquitoes and cloning dinosaurs. While this remains science fiction, DNA degrades too quickly to survive millions of years, and cloning extinct animals is far more complex than the film suggests, it sparked public interest in genetics and paleontology. The film's impact on dinosaur popularity cannot be overstated. It created a dinosaur renaissance in popular culture that continues today. The discovery of feathered dinosaurs in China in the 1990s, 2000s, revolutionized dinosaur imagery. Suddenly, the scaly, reptilian dinosaurs of popular culture were being replaced, in scientific circles at least, with feathered versions that looked distinctly bird-like. This created tension between scientific accuracy and cultural expectations. Many people resisted feathered dinosaurs because they seemed less impressive, less dinosaur-like, even though the evidence was overwhelming. Modern depictions in documentaries and films increasingly incorporate feathered dinosaurs, though often selectively. Small theropods are shown with feathers while large ones remain scaly, a compromise between science and audience expectations. The Jurassic World films, 2015-2022, acknowledged feathered dinosaurs but justified showing scaly ones by claiming the cloned dinosaurs were genetic hybrids, not perfect recreations. This balancing act between accuracy and entertainment continues. Dinosaurs have become cultural icons representing various concepts beyond themselves. They symbolize extinction. The dinosaur's fate warns us about environmental change and the fragility of dominant species. They represent deep time. Their existence millions of years ago helps people grasp geological timescales. They inspire wonder. Their size, diversity, and strangeness capture imagination across all ages. For children especially, dinosaurs serve as gateways to science. Many children go through a dinosaur phase where they memorize species names, learn about paleontology, and develop scientific thinking skills. Some of these children become professional paleontologists. Others carry their early scientific interest into other fields. Dinosaurs are often the first complex scientific topic children encounter, serving as introduction to evolution, geology, and the nature of scientific inquiry. Dinosaurs also feature prominently in pseudoscience and alternative theories. Claims that humans and dinosaurs coexisted, that dinosaurs still survive in remote locations, that dinosaur extinctions were caused by various catastrophes beyond the evidence. These persist despite scientific refutation. Understanding why these alternative narratives persist, often tied to religious or political beliefs, is part of understanding dinosaurs' cultural impact. Museums continue to play crucial roles in dinosaur education and popular culture. Major museums compete to display the most complete or impressive dinosaur skeletons. Traveling exhibits bring dinosaur fossils to cities worldwide. Museum gift shops sell dinosaur merchandise, creating economic incentives for museums to maintain dinosaur displays. The educational mission of museums, teaching accurate science to the public, is supported by dinosaurs' popularity. Academic paleontology has grown substantially, with dinosaur specialists working worldwide. Journals, conferences, and research projects focused on dinosaurs proliferate. Dinosaur paleontology has become a recognized scientific discipline with its own methods, debates, and career paths. This professionalization ensures continued advancement in understanding dinosaurs while maintaining scientific rigor. The internet age has democratized dinosaur information, making scientific papers, museum collections, and fossil images accessible to anyone with internet access. Social media allows paleontologists to communicate directly with public audiences, explaining discoveries and correcting misconceptions. This direct communication strengthens public understanding and increases appreciation for the scientific process. As you drift towards sleep, consider the remarkable fact that dinosaurs, extinct for 66 million years known only from fossil remains, have become household names recognized by people worldwide. Tyrannosaurus rex is more famous than most living animals. Children can identify dinosaurs that scientists couldn't name until recently. This cultural penetration reflects something deep about human nature, our curiosity about the past, our wonder at the strange and enormous, our need to understand our place in the long history of life on Earth. Dinosaurs connect us to deep time, to vanished worlds, to the reality that Earth has a long history that will continue long after we're gone. They humble us with their size and success, inspire us with their diversity, and fascinate us with their strangeness. They're gone but not forgotten, extinct but living on in human imagination and scientific knowledge. The cultural dinosaurs, the icons and images, drift through your mind as you sink deeper towards sleep, mixing with the scientific dinosaurs we've explored, creating a rich tapestry of knowledge, wonder, and imagination. Modern research. What we're still learning. Let your consciousness drift as we explore the cutting edge of dinosaur research. Despite more than 150 years of study, dinosaur paleontology remains a dynamic field where new discoveries and analytical techniques constantly revise our understanding. What are scientists learning right now? What questions remain unanswered? What technologies are revolutionizing dinosaur studies? New species. Dinosaur discovery continues at a remarkable pace. On average, 1 or 2 new dinosaur species are named every month, about 50 per year. Most are from previously unexplored rock formations, particularly in China, Argentina, and other southern hemisphere locations that were less studied in earlier eras of paleontology. Each new species adds to our understanding of dinosaur diversity, evolution, and biogeography. Recent remarkable discoveries include Dreadnoughtus, 2014, one of the most complete giant sauropods ever found, providing unprecedented data about how these enormous animals were built. Chilsaurus, 2015, was a bizarre dinosaur that combined features from different dinosaur groups in unexpected ways, challenging our understanding of dinosaur classification. Uberajara, 2020, was a small dinosaur with elaborate shoulder structures that may have been used for display, expanding our knowledge of dinosaur ornamentation. Soft tissue preservation. Perhaps the most exciting recent development is the discovery that some fossils preserve not just bones but also soft tissues. In 2005, Mary Schweitzer reported finding blood vessels and protein fragments in a 68-million-year-old T-Rex bone. This sparked controversy. How could soft tissues survive so long? But subsequent discoveries in other specimens confirmed the findings. The preserved tissues aren't in their original form, but have been mineralized and chemically altered in ways that prevent complete decay. They don't contain intact DNA. DNA degrades too quickly to survive millions of years, but do preserve proteins, particularly collagen, that provide molecular information about dinosaur biology. Protein sequences can be used for phylogenetic analysis, potentially resolving debates about evolutionary relationships. Color determination. As discussed earlier, the discovery that fossilized feathers preserve melanosomes, pigment structures whose shapes indicate colors, has allowed scientists to determine dinosaur colors in some cases. This research continues, with new species having their colors reconstructed regularly. Beyond simple colors, scientists are now studying pattern formation, how colors were arranged, whether they were used for camouflage or display, how they changed with age or season. Growth studies. Analyzing bone microstructure reveals how fast dinosaurs grew and how long they lived. By counting growth lines in bones, similar to tree rings, Scientists can determine the age of individual specimens and plot growth curves, showing how body mass increased with age. These studies have revealed that dinosaurs grew faster than modern reptiles but slower than mammals, with growth rates varying dramatically between species. Growth studies also reveal that many dinosaurs went through dramatic changes as they matured. Some species thought to be separate dinosaurs are now recognized as juveniles of other species. Nanotyrannus is probably a juvenile T-Rex, not a distinct genus. Dracorex and Stygimoloch are probably juvenile and subadult Pachycephalosaurus. Understanding ontogeny, growth and development, is crucial for accurately counting species and understanding variation. Biomechanical modelling. Computer simulations allow scientists to test hypotheses about dinosaur movement, feeding and behaviour. Finite element analysis, an engineering technique modelling stress distribution in structures, can determine how strong skulls were, how powerful bites were, how fast animals could run without breaking bones. These quantitative analyses replace earlier qualitative guesses with testable predictions. Recent biomechanical studies have determined that T-Rex couldn't run fast enough to catch a jeep, as in Jurassic Park, but could trot at 2740 km/h, sufficient for hunting large prey. Stegosaurus tail spikes could deliver powerful blows capable of injuring predators. Sauropod necks were probably held horizontally rather than vertically, as vertical postures would cause blood pressure problems. Developmental biology. Comparing dinosaur embryos with modern bird embryos reveals how dinosaur development occurred. Fossilized dinosaur eggs containing embryos show that baby dinosaurs had different proportions than adults, relatively large heads, short limbs, similar to modern birds. Studying embryonic development helps paleontologists understand how dinosaurs grew from egg to adult, and how evolutionary changes in development produced different adult forms. Isotope analysis, geochemical analysis of fossil bones and teeth, provides information invisible to traditional morphological study. Oxygen isotopes reveal environmental temperatures and water sources. Carbon isotopes reveal diet. Strontium isotopes reveal geographic movement. Individuals can be tracked as they move between regions with different strontium signatures. These techniques are revealing migration patterns, dietary specialization, and ecological relationships. CT scanning. Computed tomography allows scientists to see inside fossils without destroying them. This has revolutionized neurosensory biology. By scanning skulls, scientists can create 3D models of brains, inner ears, and sinuses, revealing sensory capabilities and cognitive abilities. CT scans can also reveal hidden bones, embryos inside eggs, bones inside body cavities that would be impossible to see otherwise. Digital technology. 3D scanning and printing allow scientists to create exact replicas of fossils that can be shared worldwide without shipping fragile originals. Digital models can be manipulated, measured, and studied in ways physical fossils cannot. Virtual reconstructions allow scientists to assemble skeletons digitally, testing different poses and configurations. These technologies democratize access to fossils and accelerate research. Molecular paleontology. While dinosaur DNA doesn't survive, proteins do, occasionally, and these can provide molecular information. Protein sequences from dinosaur collagen can be compared to modern animals, providing independent evidence for evolutionary relationships. The discovery that birds are dinosaurs is supported by molecular as well as morphological evidence. Bird proteins are more similar to dinosaur proteins than to other modern animals. Taphonomy studies. Understanding how fossils form and what biases affect the fossil record helps paleontologists interpret what they find. Experimental taphonomy, observing modern carcasses and seeing how they decompose and fossilize, provides baseline data for interpreting ancient fossils. These studies reveal that fossilization is rare, that preservation is biased towards certain environments and body parts, and that interpreting fossils requires understanding what doesn't preserve as well as what does. Comparative phylogenetic analysis. Using sophisticated statistical methods, scientists are constructing increasingly detailed evolutionary trees showing relationships among dinosaurs and between dinosaurs and other organisms. These trees, combined with fossil ages, reveal patterns of evolution. When different groups appeared, how fast they diversified, which extinctions affected which lineages. Understanding evolutionary patterns helps scientists predict where and when to find particular types of fossils. Behavioural studies, trackways, nest sites and fossil assemblages provide evidence for behaviour that bones alone cannot reveal. Recent discoveries of trackways showing social behaviour, nesting colonies showing parental care, and bone beds showing herding behaviour continue to refine our understanding of dinosaur social lives. Computer modelling of acoustic structures in hadrosaur crests reveals what sounds they made. Biomechanical analysis of tails reveals how they were used. Dinosaur behaviour is becoming less speculative and more evidence-based. Climate modelling. Using continental positions, atmospheric composition, and ocean circulation patterns, scientists can model ancient climates and predict what conditions dinosaurs experienced. These models can be tested against fossil distributions. If models predict deserts in certain regions, there should be desert-adapted dinosaurs there. The match between models and fossils validates both approaches and provides detailed reconstructions of ancient environments. Astrobiology connections. Studying how life responded to the end Cretaceous asteroid impact informs searches for life on other planets. If life on Earth could survive such catastrophic impacts, perhaps life elsewhere could survive similar events. Understanding resilience and extinction on Earth provides context for astrobiology. Conversely, studying extreme environments on modern Earth, analogues for other planets, helps us understand the limits of life. Despite all these advances, fundamental questions remain unanswered. We still don't fully understand why dinosaurs became dominant after the end Triassic extinction. We don't know for certain whether T-Rex was primarily a predator or a scavenger, probably both. We don't know how sauropods could grow so large without their circulatory systems failing. We don't know whether some dinosaurs were nocturnal. We don't know the full extent of parental care in different groups. New technologies on the horizon promise further revelations. Ancient protein sequencing may become routine, providing molecular data for phylogenetic analysis. Improved isotope analysis may reveal seasonal behaviours and migration patterns in greater detail. Machine learning algorithms may discover patterns in fossil data that human researchers miss. Virtual reality may allow scientists and public audiences to experience reconstructed Mesozoic environments in immersive ways. The pace of discovery shows no sign of slowing. Vast areas remain paleontologically unexplored. Most of Africa, South America and Asia have been lightly surveyed at best. Rock formations known to contain fossils remain incompletely explored. Private lands contain fossils that have never been examined by scientists. Every year brings new discoveries that surprise researchers and revise understanding. As you drift toward the deeper stages of sleep, imagine the scientists working in laboratories and field sites worldwide, slowly assembling the puzzle of dinosaur biology. Each new fossil, each new analysis, each new technique adds pieces to the picture. The work is painstaking, requires patience and precision, but gradually the ancient world comes into focus, revealing its secrets to those willing to search for them. The research continues, the discoveries accumulate, and understanding deepens. But mysteries remain, questions persist, and the story of dinosaurs continues to unfold through the dedicated work of paleontologists who spend their careers studying these magnificent extinct animals. Deep time and perspective, understanding our place. As you rest in deep relaxation, your breathing slow and steady, let's conclude our journey by zooming out to the broadest possible perspective. Dinosaurs existed for 165 million years, an incomprehensible span from human perspective. But even this enormous duration is only a small fraction of Earth's 4.5 billion year history. Understanding this deep time helps us appreciate dinosaurs' place in the story of life and our own brief moment in that story. Earth formed approximately 4.5 billion years ago from the accretion of dust and gas orbiting the young sun. For the first several 100 million years, Earth was hostile to life, hot, volcanic, bombarded by asteroids. The first life appeared perhaps 3.8 billion years ago, simple single-celled organisms in ancient oceans. For the next 3 billion years, life remained microbial. Bacteria and archaea dominated, slowly transforming the planet by producing oxygen through photosynthesis. Complex multicellular life appeared relatively recently. The first animals evolved around 600 million years ago. The Cambrian explosion 541 million years ago saw the rapid diversification of animals with hard parts, shells, skeletons that could fossilize readily. Fish appeared, then plants colonized land, then arthropods followed, Then vertebrates moved onto land about 375 million years ago. Dinosaurs appeared 230 million years ago, only about 5% of Earth's history. They dominated terrestrial ecosystems for 165 million years, about 3.6% of Earth's history. Non-avian dinosaurs went extinct 66 million years ago, about 1.5% of Earth's history ago. Modern humans appeared less than 300,000 years ago, 67% of Earth's history. Recorded human civilization spans about 5,000 years, 0.1% of Earth's history. These percentages reveal our temporal insignificance. We're newcomers, having existed for a tiny fraction of Earth's history, sharing the planet with dinosaurs only in the sense that birds are dinosaurs. The dinosaurs lived, dominated, and, mostly, went extinct, long before any human or any ancestor recognizable as potentially leading to humans existed. Yet we can know about dinosaurs. Through fossils, through bones preserved in rock for tens of millions of years, we can reconstruct what these animals looked like, how they moved, what they ate, how they reproduced. We can't know everything, but we can know surprisingly much. This is the power of paleontology, of science generally, to recover knowledge about things beyond direct experience, to reach across vast spans of time and reconstruct vanished realities. Dinosaurs also provide perspective on extinction. The dinosaurs seemed invincible. They dominated for 165 million years, far longer than mammals have dominated, 65 million years and counting. They survived climate changes, sea level fluctuations, volcanic eruptions. They adapted to diverse environments from poles to equator, from deserts to swamps. They evolved remarkable diversity, extraordinary sizes, sophisticated behaviours, yet they went extinct. Not through inadequacy or evolutionary failure, but through catastrophe, an asteroid impact that no amount of adaptation could prepare them for. This reminds us that dominance doesn't guarantee survival, that success over millions of years doesn't prevent sudden extinction, that the universe is indifferent to our achievements. Species, genera, even entire lineages can disappear regardless of how successful they were before. This has implications for modern humans. We're currently dominant, we've modified Earth's ecosystems extensively, driven countless species extinct, altered the atmosphere and climate. We're successful by most measures, but so were dinosaurs, and they're gone, except birds. Our dominance doesn't guarantee our survival. Catastrophes, whether cosmic like asteroids, terrestrial like climate change or nuclear war, or biological like pandemics, could end human civilization or humanity itself. Dinosaurs also remind us that Earth has a history independent of humanity. The planet existed for billions of years before we appeared and will continue for billions more after we're gone. The landscapes we think of as eternal, mountains, rivers, continents, are temporary on geological timescales. The Rocky Mountains, the Atlantic Ocean, the Sahara Desert, all are recent features that didn't exist during much of dinosaur time and that will eventually disappear. This perspective is simultaneously humbling and liberating. Humbling because it reveals our insignificance. We're a brief episode in a much longer story, not the culmination or purpose of Earth's history. Liberating because it removes the pressure to be more than we are. We're simply the current dominant species, evolved by the same processes that evolved dinosaurs, subject to the same laws of biology and geology, temporary occupants of a planet that will outlast us. Yet our brief existence is valuable. We're the first species, as far as we know, capable of understanding deep time, of reconstructing the past, of appreciating the full sweep of life's history. We can know about dinosaurs, not perfectly, but substantially. We can understand evolution, geology, astronomy, the scientific principles that govern reality. This knowledge is precious, a remarkable achievement of consciousness and intelligence. Our scientific understanding of dinosaurs represents thousands of scientists over more than 150 years, each contributing pieces to the larger picture. Every fossil collected, every bone prepared, every analysis conducted, every paper published adds to humanity's collective knowledge. This cumulative knowledge is one of our species' greatest achievements. We've reached across millions of years, recovering information that seemed permanently lost, reconstructing worlds that seemed beyond recovery. Dinosaurs also remind us of life's resilience. After the Permian-Triassic extinction killed 96% of marine species, life recovered and diversified. After the end Triassic extinction eliminated many reptile lineages, dinosaurs radiated into the empty niches. After the end Cretaceous extinction eliminated non-avian dinosaurs, mammals radiated to replace them. Life persists despite catastrophes, rebounds from disasters, fills empty spaces with new forms. This doesn't mean individual extinctions don't matter. Each lost species is irreplaceable. Each extinction is a tragedy for the organisms experiencing it. But life as a whole, the biosphere, has proven remarkably resilient, bouncing back from catastrophes repeatedly over billions of years. Barring complete sterilization of the planet, life will persist even after humanity is gone. What will future organisms think of us, if any achieve intelligence? Will they discover our fossils as we discovered dinosaur fossils? Will they reconstruct our civilizations, marvel at our technology, wonder why we went extinct? Will they learn from our mistakes or repeat them? These questions are speculative but thought-provoking. We're creating a fossil record, our buildings, our trash, our modified landscapes that will persist for millions of years, telling future paleontologists, if any exist, about our brief dominance. The dinosaur story is complete. We know, roughly, their origin, diversification, dominance, and extinction. The human story is incomplete. We know our origin and early history, but our future is unwritten. Will we avoid extinction for millions of years like dinosaurs did? Will we transform ourselves through technology into something unrecognizable? Will we colonize other worlds, making extinction of our home planet survivable? Will we destroy ourselves through war, environmental destruction, or other catastrophes? The future is uncertain, but dinosaurs remind us that nothing is permanent, that dominance doesn't guarantee survival, that extinction is the eventual fate of all species. Yet while we exist, we can know, learn, understand, and appreciate the universe we inhabit. We can study dinosaurs, recovering knowledge about these remarkable animals. We can share that knowledge, educating others, inspiring wonder and scientific curiosity. We can use that knowledge, understanding evolutionary processes, geological cycles, ecological principles that apply to all life, including ourselves. This is meaningful despite our temporal insignificance. Knowledge and understanding are valuable for their own sake, regardless of how briefly we exist to possess them. As you drift into the final approach to sleep, hold this perspective in your mind. You're lying here, in this moment, thinking about animals that lived tens of millions of years before you were born, on a planet that existed billions of years before that, in a universe that began nearly 14 billion years ago. You're a temporary pattern of matter and energy, briefly conscious, briefly capable of thought and wonder, connected through evolution to all life that came before, including dinosaurs. The dinosaurs lived their lives without knowing about you, couldn't have imagined your existence. You know about them only because fossils preserved their bones and human intelligence developed science to interpret those fossils. This asymmetry of knowledge, you know them. They couldn't know you, is strange and wonderful. Across the vast gulf of extinction and millions of years, you've reached out and touched the Mesozoic, learning about its inhabitants, appreciating their existence, honouring their memory through study and understanding. As sleep approaches, as consciousness fades, the dinosaurs retreat into the past where they belong, into the deep time from which we've temporarily recalled them. They lived, they dominated, they died, and we, billions of years later, remembered them, studied them, brought them back to life in our imaginations and our science. This is humanity's gift, the ability to recover the past, to understand deep time, to appreciate life's full history. And as you drift into sleep, that gift carries you backward through time, through millions of years, toward the ancient world where dinosaurs walked, hunted, nested, and lived their impossible lives under impossible skies. Sleep in the shadow of giants. Rest now. Let your body become heavy. Let your mind grow quiet. Let the journey we've taken together fade into peaceful darkness. For 3 hours, we've explored the age of dinosaurs, from their humble origins in the Triassic to their dominance in the Jurassic and Cretaceous, from the smallest theropods to the largest sauropods, from their family lives to their ultimate extinction. You've learned more than most people will ever know about these remarkable animals. Now it's time to rest. What we've discovered together, We began with the first dinosaurs, small, unremarkable creatures in a world dominated by other reptiles. We watched them survive the end-Triassic extinction and radiate into the ecological niches left empty by that catastrophe. We marvelled at the giants, sauropods that grew to sizes no land animals have equalled before or since, solving engineering problems through elegant anatomical innovations. We met the predators, from Allosaurus in the Jurassic to Tyrannosaurus rex in the Cretaceous, understanding how they hunted, how powerful their bites were, how acute their senses were. We discovered that many dinosaurs had feathers, fundamentally changing how we visualize them, connecting them to modern birds, revealing that dinosaurs aren't extinct but persist in more than 10,000 species worldwide. We explored their defenses, armor, horns, tail weapons, speed, herding, understanding the evolutionary arms race between predators and prey. We witnessed their family lives, nesting, incubating, feeding young, revealing that some dinosaurs provided extensive parental care, challenging assumptions about reptilian reproduction. We examined their intelligence, their colours, their sounds, recognizing that dinosaurs were complex, behaviourally sophisticated animals. We understood their diseases and injuries, seeing that life in the Mesozoic was hard, that survival required resilience, that many dinosaurs bore scars testifying to difficult lives. We learned how fossils form and how paleontologists discover and interpret them, appreciating the scientific process that transforms ancient bones into knowledge about vanished worlds. We clarified what dinosaurs were and weren't. They dominated land but not sea or air. Those realms belonged to other reptiles. We understood the catastrophe that ended the age of dinosaurs, an asteroid impact combined with massive volcanism, creating conditions that even 165 million years of evolutionary success couldn't prepare them for. We recognized their survivors, birds, the living dinosaurs that persevere and thrive despite the catastrophe that eliminated their non-avian relatives. We met the record breakers, the largest, smallest, strangest, fastest, appreciating the remarkable diversity that evolution produced. We reconstructed their environments, understanding not just individual dinosaurs but complete ecosystems, communities of plants and animals interacting in complex ways. We explored their cultural impact, recognizing that dinosaurs have captured human imagination since their discovery, inspiring wonder, scientific careers, and popular entertainment. We examined cutting-edge research, seeing that dinosaur science remains dynamic, that new discoveries and techniques constantly revise understanding. And we zoomed out to the broadest perspective, understanding deep time, recognizing our place in Earth's long history, appreciating that dinosaurs' 165 million year reign was just one chapter in a far longer story. What dinosaurs teach us? Beyond the specific facts, what larger lessons do dinosaurs offer? They teach us about evolution, how life changes over time, adapts to environments, produces diversity, sometimes goes extinct despite success. They teach us about deep time, the vast ages of geological history that dwarf human experience, the ancient worlds that existed before us and that will follow after we're gone. They teach us about science, how patient observation, careful reasoning, and ingenious techniques can recover knowledge that seems permanently lost. How fragments of evidence can be assembled into coherent pictures of the past. They teach us about uncertainty, that science doesn't provide complete answers, that mysteries remain, that knowledge is always provisional and subject to revision with new evidence. They teach us humility, that we're not the first dominant species, not the pinnacle of evolution, not guaranteed survival despite our current success. They teach us wonder, that the universe is stranger and more magnificent than we imagined, that Earth's history is full of remarkable creatures and dramatic events, that reality is more fascinating than fiction. They teach us about extinction, that it's real, that it's permanent, that dominance doesn't prevent it, that catastrophes can end even the most successful lineages, and they teach us about resilience, that life bounces back from catastrophes, that ecosystems rebuild, that evolution fills empty niches with new forms, that the biosphere persists despite disasters. The gift of understanding. You now possess knowledge that was unavailable to humans for most of our species' existence. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans might have occasionally found fossils, large bones weathering out of rocks, but they couldn't interpret them correctly. They might have imagined giants or monsters, might have created myths to explain these mysterious remains. Only in the last 200 years have we understood that fossils are remains of extinct organisms, that Earth has a long history, that dinosaurs once existed. And only in the last few decades have we understood dinosaurs in any detail, their appearance, behaviour, physiology, evolution. Much of what you've learned tonight has been discovered within living memory, by scientists still working today. You're living through a golden age of dinosaur discovery and understanding. Knowledge that was impossible for previous generations is now available to you. This knowledge is precious. It connects you to deep time, to vanished worlds, to the full sweep of life's history. It allows you to understand evolution, extinction, ecological processes. It provides perspective on humanity's place in the cosmos, and it inspires wonder, the appropriate response to learning about 50-ton sauropods, feathered theropods, the 165 million year reign of reptilian dynasties. Why this matters. You might wonder why you should care about animals that went extinct millions of years ago, that never interacted with humans, that lived in worlds so different from ours they might as well be alien planets. The answer is simple. Understanding the past helps us understand the present and anticipate the future. The processes that shaped dinosaurs, evolution, extinction, climate change, ecological interactions, still operate today, shaping modern life, including humans. Understanding how dinosaurs adapted to changing environments informs our understanding of how modern species might respond to current environmental changes. Understanding why dinosaurs went extinct helps us appreciate extinction risk for modern species. Dinosaurs also remind us that Earth is dynamic, constantly changing, never static. The world we know, its geography, climate, life, is temporary, already transforming into something different. This perspective helps us appreciate that environmental change is normal over geological timescales, though the current human-caused changes are occurring unnaturally fast. More fundamentally, understanding dinosaurs enriches human experience. Knowledge is valuable for its own sake. Wonder is valuable for its own sake. The ability to learn about and appreciate the natural world, past and present, is part of what makes us human, what gives life meaning and richness. A world where people understand and care about dinosaurs is richer than a world where they don't. Sleep now, you've travelled far tonight. You've journeyed through 165 million years of Earth's history, met hundreds of species, explored countless ecosystems, understood complex scientific concepts. Your mind has ranged across continents and eras, from the late Triassic to the end Cretaceous, from Euraptor to Tyrannosaurus, from tiny feathered theropods to 70-ton sauropods. Now it's time to rest. The dinosaurs are gone. Return to the deep past from which we temporarily summoned them. The Mesozoic worlds have faded back into geological history. The ancient forests, deserts, and coastlines exist only in rock record and scientific reconstruction. The thunder of sauropod footsteps, the roar of tyrannosaurs, the calls of hadrosaurs have been silent for 66 million years. But for a few hours they lived again in your imagination, reconstructed through science, brought back from extinction through human curiosity and knowledge. This is our power, to recover the past, to understand deep time, to appreciate life's full history. And this is our privilege, to be the species capable of such recovery, such understanding, such appreciation. As you drift into sleep, let the dinosaurs accompany you. Let their images populate your dreams, sauropods browsing in Jurassic forests, tyrannosaurs hunting in Cretaceous plains, pterosaurs soaring above ancient seas. Let their story remind you of Earth's deep history, of life's incredible diversity, of science's power to illuminate the past. Rest peacefully in the knowledge that you understand something profound about the universe, that Earth has a long history, that remarkable creatures once existed, that we can know about them despite their extinction millions of years ago. This knowledge is a gift, a connection to deep time, a window into vanished worlds. The giants walked, dominated, and died, but they're not forgotten. Through fossils, through science, through human curiosity, they persist in memory and understanding, and tonight, as you sleep, they live again in your dreams, in your imagination, in the knowledge you now possess. Sleep well, dream of dinosaurs, and remember that you've touched deep time, reached across millions of years, connected with creatures that lived in ancient worlds. This is remarkable. This is wonderful. This is the gift that science and fossils provide: access to Earth's full history, understanding of life's long story, appreciation for the magnificent diversity that evolution produces. The dinosaurs rest in the ground, transformed to stone, waiting for future paleontologists to discover. And you rest in your bed, your mind full of dinosaur knowledge, gradually drifting into unconsciousness, into dreams, into sleep. Good night. Sleep well. And thank you for joining this journey through the age of dinosaurs. 165 million years of evolutionary success, ecological dominance, and biological innovation. May your dreams be filled with feathered predators, giant herbivores, and the magnificent diversity of the Mesozoic Era. The giants sleep in the earth, and now you sleep with them, connected across deep time, participant in the long story of life on Earth.